My mother and my sister are famously saintly and pure-hearted. They always talk about being magnanimous and not holding grudges, until my father brought home his 4-year-old illegitimate son, saying he wanted to bring the boy back to the family. I firmly opposed it and drove the illegitimate child out of the house. My mother and my sister blamed me for being cruel-hearted, for picking on a child, and then sent the illegitimate child abroad to be properly raised. The impoverished college student my sister was sponsoring hooked up with my brother-in-law, and I was the first to rush forward and chase away the mistress. My sister, however, calmly said, "Life is a journey of cultivation, and since fate has arranged for her to appear, it must be to test me." The impoverished student resented me for blocking her good fortune and faked a traffic accident to put me to death. I never expected that my mom and my sister would actually say at my grave, "See, heaven sees everything people do, this is the fate of those who do nothing but evil, there's retribution, you know." Wow, after all this time, it turns out I was the one standing up for them, and yet I'm still the one they mock. If I could start over, my dad would bring his illegitimate child home. Whoever wants to be that damn fool who sticks their neck out can go ahead and do it. 1. Tang Hua. I brought back a child. My father, Zhang Yingzi, stood in the living room holding a boy who looked about 4 years old. Zhang Yingzi gazed at the boy with a loving expression, occasionally stroking his hair. Seeing my mother and me coming down the stairs, he proudly said, "Tang Hua, from today on, Hao will stay with us. You must treat him like your own son, understand?" Zhang Yingzi's voice was not loud, yet it carried an undeniable authority. I glanced around at the familiar scene, the familiar conversation, and for a moment, I was disoriented before realizing that I had been reborn. This was back to the time when my father brought his illegitimate son home. It was truly a blessing from heaven. My hundreds of rebirth novels hadn't been read in vain. I know full well that opportunities in this world must be seized. Even if one doesn't have the means or high intelligence to avenge the past life, one should still stay far away. The painful lessons of the past are still vivid in my mind. Ensuring my own safety is the top priority. That day my dad brought home his illegitimate child, and I was the first to lose my temper, even before my mom did. Every word he uttered was met with my thunderous rebuttal. While he was away on a business trip, I secretly sent the illegitimate child to a special education school with a large sum of money. Somewhere no one could find him. My father searched for him for a long time but found no trace. I dealt with this major problem with lightning speed. My mother, Zhou Tanghua, and my sister, Zhang Ling, looked at me with pity. "Ah, the child is truly pitiful. He's barely 5 years old. Even if he's an illegitimate child, what difference does it make? Our family can certainly afford to raise him. If we take him in now, he'll grow up seeing me as his real mother." Zhang Ling echoed my mother's words. "Yes, after all, he shares half of Dad's blood, so he's my own brother in the end. I wonder where Minmin sent him. How heartless. What a sin, what a sin." Then they shifted the topic, subtly starting to blame me. "Zhang Minmin, your sister and I spend our days fasting and chanting Buddhist scriptures, yet you are so cruel and ruthless. You don't seem like my own flesh and blood. I never imagined you could be so merciless toward a child. Do you have any idea how pitiful it is for a young child to be separated from their family's embrace? Children at this age need a sense of security the most. When he's thirsty or hungry, no one will care for him. Don't you feel even a little bit guilty?" I was just about to explain something when Zhang Ling interrupted me. "Minmin, don't say anything more. What's done is done. Mom and I will go to the temple in the mountains and copy Buddhist scriptures for a month to atone for your sins. But deep down, I feel the karma you carry is too heavy to atone for my sins." I was speechless. In the end, my mother secretly sent the illegitimate child abroad for education behind my back. I was truly furious and angry. From childhood, Zhou Tanghua and Zhang Ling have been known for their bodhisattva-like hearts. Everyone around them says that the Zhang mother and daughter are extremely gentle and charitable in their dealings with others, never competing or fighting. They are sure to receive good karma, unlike the younger daughter, which is me. They always have the phrase, "Life is a practice. Once you let go and see through it, it becomes a different world," on their lips. Regarding my father bringing his illegitimate child home, I deeply empathize with my mother and feel she shouldn't have to bear this injustice. I strongly urged her to stand up and defend her rightful position as the legitimate wife. She disagreed, saying that since she married my father, she must accept all his flaws, including his child from outside the marriage. I only thought she was simply kind-hearted, so I stood up for her in everything and took the lead in solving her troubles. She does the good deeds, but the good reputation goes to her and her sister. I'll be the bad guy. I'll take the blame. Finally, because of my sister and brother-in-law's affairs. I was hired and killed by the mistress, but they mocked me at my grave, acting as if they had transcended all worldly matters. Look, Lingling, I told you your sister was always stirring up trouble, fighting this and that. She never had a good ending, did she? What goes around comes around. Doing too many bad things always brings retribution. I was so foolish to be their scapegoat. The bullet that hurt me the most was fired by their own hands. In this life, I have learned to keep quiet. I'll just be a quail with its neck tucked in, and I'll see how you all solve it on your own, too. Zhou Tenghua was stunned for a moment, looking at the intimate father and son pair. Unable to speak, she carefully examined the boy's features, repeatedly searching for similar traces on my father's face. After a long pause, she murmured, "It's really like him." Her figure wavered slightly, and she suddenly felt unsteady on her feet. She took 2 steps back and suddenly sat down on the sofa with a dull thud. Seeing his wife in this state, my father looked somewhat displeased. "What are you staring at? Don't you know whether he's my son or not? Do you have the right to question it? His mother, Erjun, passed away from illness not long ago. I can't let my son wander outside, so from today on, Hao is our family member. You must treat him as your own biological son. The Hao's mom my dad talks about is Jiang Erjun, the white moonlight of his youth, because my grandmother didn't like her and firmly opposed my dad marrying Jiang Erjun. That's how my mom came into the picture later. Who would have thought that Jiang Erjun was also a stubborn one, never marrying anyone else after leaving my dad. My father had never been able to forget her, and after a chance encounter a few years ago, he couldn't resist getting involved with her again. Naturally, they ended up having a little bastard child. Jiang Erjun's existence has always been a thorn in my mother's heart. Although she was the daughter-in-law hand-picked by my grandmother, she never truly won my father's heart. Faced with my mother's helplessness, my father appeared confident, knowing that no matter what he did, my mother would inevitably give in. "Tenghua, Zhou Tenghua, I'm talking to you. Did you hear me? Say what you think directly. Don't make me guess. I don't have time for that." My mother lowered her gaze without speaking, her hands clasped tightly, trembling violently, her nails almost digging into her flesh, yet she still forced herself to remain calm and maintain a dignified posture. My dad was practically in her face, but she remained unmoved. In my past life, I didn't understand, but now I do, because over the years, what my dad has praised most about my mom is her indifferent demeanor. Years of vegetarianism and Buddhist practices have left my mom constantly exuding a faint scent of incense. She treats people and matters with a calm detachment, devoid of any desire to compete or fight for anything. This is the greatest difference between Zhou Tenghua and Jiang Erjun. It's something Jiang Erjun lacks. Whenever there's something that requires fighting for, her daughter will always take care of it for her. She just needs to come out and gently scold me after gaining some benefit, saying some lofty words about life and death being unimportant, and she can easily earn everyone's praise. 3. My mom stays silent, while my dad's words cut to the core. Erjun has had a tough life. She never married for my sake, wasting her prime youth. She's so beautiful and highly educated. How could she be so devoted to me? My dad says it's a pity, but deep down, he's actually over the moon with pride. In this lifetime, I've let Erjun down. She risked being an older mother to give me a son, and before I could properly repay her, she passed away from illness. This is my only son, Zhang Yingzi, and the sole heir of our Zhang family. I want to make up for all my regrets with Erjun by pouring everything into Hao. My father kept talking to himself. The phrase, the sole heir, didn't stir any emotion in me when it was spoken. He could say whatever he wanted, but when the time came, the law wouldn't allow me to be left without any share of the family assets. My mother, however, had long since reddened her eyes, biting her lower lip tightly. A smile still lingered at the corners of her mouth. My father gave my mother a faint glance. "Tenghua, I hope you can be fair and generous, and take good care of me and Erjun's child. Go and prepare a children's room right away. Replace all the bedding, clothes, and everything else with new ones, and by the best quality." My mother glanced at me, who was sitting nearby. Her eyes were filled with expectation and implication. I played with my phone as if nothing had happened, opening Honor of Kings and diving right in. If this had happened in the past, with my temper, I would never have been able to endure my father's endless chattering for so long, would have flipped the table over long ago. In my previous life, not only did I curse my father until he didn't even recognize his own home, but I also grabbed that little bastard and threw him out. Although I got a few slaps from my dad back then, I didn't care at all. I stood in front of my mom like a furious lion. For a time, I thought my mother was the most pitiful and helpless woman in the world, being bullied by her own husband to the point where she couldn't even fight back, and as the best daughter a mother could have, I must protect my mother. I want my mom to know that in this world, a daughter is much more useful than a husband, but now it's impossible. My mom is in her 40s, and she's lived through more days than I've had meals, so she'll definitely handle it well. Seeing that my eyes seemed glued to my phone, a flicker of surprise passed through my mom's gaze. That surprise was exactly right. She had long been accustomed to me being her sword, but today that sword had been sharpened and was no longer usable. Because my mom always turned her gaze toward me, seeking help, and my dad followed her look and said, "Tang Hua, I'm talking to you. Why are you always looking at Minmin?" At that moment, I put down my phone and met my dad's gaze, and my mom felt a secret thrill in her heart. She knew my fighting spirit well. Since childhood, everyone was afraid of Dad, except me. I challenge heaven and earth, never losing a battle. My record is verifiable. My mother proudly raised her head high. Whenever I start a fight, she can gracefully retreat behind me, waiting for the war to end. She then steps out to say a few fair words, but unfortunately, her wish was about to be dashed. I reached out and took the child from my father's arms, holding him close and kissing him repeatedly. "Little Hao, our little treasure, Dad." I don't know if it's because of blood ties, but the moment I saw Hao, I felt an instant fondness for him. I've always wished I could have a younger brother. Now that you've had a late-in-life son, I'll definitely love and protect him even more. Don't worry, Dad. Hearing me say this, my dad immediately beamed with joy. "Great, Minmin is truly Daddy's good daughter. That's the way it should be. You're siblings, and it's right for you to love and care for each other." I smiled brightly. "Of course, Dad, not only me, but Mom will also cherish him dearly in her heart. Isn't that right, Mom?" Seeing that I wasn't helping her but instead putting her on the spot, my mom completely lost her composure. She grabbed my hand, her lips trembling slightly uncontrollably, her voice choked with tears as she said, "Minmin, are you still my daughter? How could you say such things? Isn't this like stabbing me in the heart?" I frowned slightly, quietly pulling my arm away, and said to her, "Mom, what kind of thing is that? You're already so grown up. Can you be more mature? Hao is only 4 years old. He's Dad's son and also my younger brother. Why does it feel like you don't want him to stay at all? Besides, haven't you always said you couldn't give Dad a son? Now is your chance to make up for it." Zhang Ling returned home at that moment. Before I could even say a few words, she immediately made her stance clear. "Mom, my dad is already this age and still has a son. This must be fate's arrangement, a lovely child given to us. You should be generous and accept it." My mother's face instantly turned as pale as paper, without a trace of color. The veins on my temple throbbed with each breath. My father kept nodding, praising both of us sisters without end. "That's more like our Zhang family's daughters. You're truly great, especially Minmin. You used to be like a little hedgehog, but now, looking at you, I see you've grown up. I'm so proud." I smiled and took Hao's hand, walking away with a flourish. "Come on, sister will take you to buy some candy, this time, without my help, and with my sister enjoying the chaos even more. I'll see how my mother, who can let go of anything, can willingly take care of a little illegitimate child." For the illegitimate child naturally stayed at home. In just a few days, the house was in chaos. That little brat is only 4 years old, yet he's already rotten to the core. He not only enjoys torturing small animals, but also frequently teases and beats up the housekeepers, and he's especially good at pretending. He behaves perfectly when my dad is home. Once my father goes out, he reveals his true nature. The nannies hired one after another kept changing. Zhang Yingze was worried that the hired nannies outside wouldn't take good care of her, so he asked my mother to take care of her personally. Whenever I come home on vacation, I hide in my room and let him turn the house upside down. The mother, who had always lived a peaceful life, soon couldn't stand it anymore. At first, she could still comfort herself. Boys will be boys. It's normal for them to be a bit mischievous. Being lively is good. It shows they're smart. It wasn't until Ono smashed my mom's favorite prayer beads into pieces that she finally lost her temper. Looking at the beads scattered all over the floor, all smashed into powder by the little bastard with a hammer, my mother couldn't hold back and gave the little bastard a few slaps. The little bastard was caught off guard and fell, hitting his head on the corner of the table, causing blood to gush out instantly. I didn't dare delay and quickly called my dad, then took the little bastard to the hospital. Zhang Yingze and Zhang Ling arrived at the hospital almost at the same time. As soon as they entered the ward, they saw that the little bastard's forehead had already been bandaged, wrapped in thick gauze. Xiao Yezhong saw my dad and suddenly burst into tears. My dad, heartbroken, hugged him tightly. My son, how long have I been away from home for you to end up like this? My mom stood helplessly beside them, and for a moment, the hospital room fell into a deathly silence. Xiao Yezhong cried for a while, and my dad patiently comforted him the whole time. My dad remembered he had to hold someone accountable and turned to look at my mom. Tanghua, how did you take care of the child? How could he get his head hurt like this when everything was fine? My mom stammered. I just gave him a light push. Who knew he wasn't steady on his feet and fell on his own? My dad looked at her with disdain. Do you think I'm as easy to fool as a 3-year-old? If you have any grievances, take them out on me. What kind of skill is it to pick on a 5-year-old child? You always talk about Amitba every day, but I never expected you to be so cruel. You can't even handle such a small task properly. I really don't know what you're good for. My dad scolded my mom in front of so many people, and my mom felt embarrassed. It felt as if all the life had been drained from me, leaving only a stiff shell standing there. Normally at this point, it would be my turn to step in, and I would definitely bring up the fact that the little bastard broke my mom's prayer beads, but now, I broke the awkwardness and comforted him, saying, "Oh, Dad, don't be angry anymore. When raising a child, it's impossible to avoid bumps and bruises. My sister and I are already so grown up, and my mom hasn't taken care of a little one for many years. It's only natural that she's a bit out of practice. Besides, how isn't mom's biological child after all, suddenly coming into our family? We should give my mom some time to adjust. They say being a stepmother is tough, and there's a reason for that." My words hit my father right in the heart. He would surely think that, indeed, it was because Hao wasn't his biological son that he had been so harsh. He never fully trusted Zhou Tanghua to genuinely care for his son from the very beginning. Zhou Ling also chimed in beside her. "Mom, you too. Just a string of prayer beads. Hao is still a child. It's not a big deal if he accidentally breaks it. How could you be so harsh?" As soon as Zhang Ling spoke, I realized there was also a timid little girl who had come with her. At that moment, she was standing at the door of the ward, craning her neck to peek inside. I recognized her at a glance. This was Lin Xiaoya, the impoverished student she had supported from high school all the way through college graduation. Zhang Ling took her everywhere, and after Lin Xiaoya graduated, she was directly arranged to work as an assistant in her fiancé's company. I repeatedly reminded her that sponsors and those they sponsor must maintain a certain distance, but Zhang Ling dismissed it with disdain. Later, I happened to catch my future brother-in-law and Lin Xiaoya openly kissing on the street. I subtly hinted to Zhang Ling to be wary of the two of them. She still ignored it, even laughed at me, saying that I see others as I am. I was angry, but my sense of justice was overwhelming. I couldn't allow my own sister to be made a fool of. I used every means possible, both fair and foul, until I finally forced Lin Xiaoya to back off. I never expected Lin Xiaoya to hold a grudge against me for blocking her from the high society life she was about to enter. She actually hired someone to tamper with my brake pads and arranged for a vehicle to deliberately collide with me, causing me to die tragically on the highway. In the end, all I got was Zhang Ling's dismissive remark, "Forgive and forget, Xiaoya is still young and new to society, so making mistakes is inevitable. Besides, her falling for my fiancé just proves I have good taste in men." This time, Min went too far. Seeing Zhang Ling still treating Lin Xiaoya as her best friend at this moment makes me laugh. This time, I'll definitely keep my mouth shut tight. My dad glared fiercely at my mom. What a hypocritical person, so fake. My mom's face changed repeatedly. I guessed her lungs were about to explode, yet she couldn't say a word. After receiving a call, my dad's assistant respectfully said to him, "Chairman, you have an important meeting in half an hour. Do you want me to cancel it for you?" My dad thought for a moment and said, "No need to cancel, proceed as usual." Before leaving, my father looked down at Zhou Tanghua and admonished him, "Tanghua, you're a grown man now, you should be more sensible. The child is innocent, so we'll let it slide this time. I hope you won't disappoint me again." The child is innocent, the same phrase, but this time it came from my father's mouth. But my mother, listening to it, couldn't help feeling uneasy. 6. After my father passed away, my mother pretended to be sad, trying to get my comfort. "Minmin, you're such a silly child. Do you know what kind of consequences it would have if this child stayed in our family?" I played dumb. "What consequences?" My mother looked at me with a frustrated expression, as if she was disappointed in me. "You and your sister are both girls, and you'll have to get married eventually. Now suddenly there's a son out of nowhere, your father treats him like the apple of his eye. In the future, will there still be any share of the family property for you two? And besides, this child is more violent and easily angered than a normal 5-year-old. I looked it up online, and they say it might be XYY syndrome, a genetic disorder. It's terrifying when he grows up. I mimicked her usual condescending tone. Mom, he's still just a child. What does he understand? He's only 4 years old. I know you hate Aunt Jiang, but you can't take out all your hatred on Hao. Even if he's sick, our family situation isn't such that we can't afford to raise him. We could easily take care of 10 of them. Besides, while he's still young, if you raise him by your side, he'll definitely grow close to you and see you as his real mother when he grows up. In my previous life, I sent my son to a special education school under the pretext that he had a violent disorder, claiming it was for treatment, but in reality, it was just a way to confine him. My mother saw that I couldn't be relied on, and my sister was even worse. To some extent, she was even more saintly than my mother. You never know the pain until the knife cuts your own flesh. There was no other way. My mom had to figure it out on her own. However, there was only one solution she could think of, that was to call upon her mother-in-law. After all, she was the daughter-in-law my grandmother was extremely pleased with. Unfortunately, she miscalculated one thing. Grandma just didn't like Jiang Erzhen, but she didn't say she didn't like her own grandson. In my mother's imagination, things should have unfolded by having Grandma come back to take charge. Scolded my father and stood up for my mother. Not only did he refuse to acknowledge the illegitimate child, but he also kicked him out of the house. My mom can be beautifully invisible again. On the day Grandma arrived, I went to pick her up myself. As soon as I saw Grandma, I looked at her with concern. Grandma, I don't know what's wrong with my mom lately. She insists on having you come over even for the smallest things. At that moment, Grandma was still completely confused, not knowing what had happened. Just got a call from my mom. She cried for a long time saying something big happened at home, but couldn't get to the point. Just kept urging Grandma to come over. Grandma thought something had happened to her own son. When I got home, before I could even take a sip of water, my mom started crying and telling me about what she had been through these past few days. I never expected Grandma's expression to completely change after seeing how I could tell from her eyes that she genuinely adored this grandson of hers. Only my mother kept insisting that Grandma should stand up for her. Grandma said coldly, Tanghua, so it's just this little thing. I thought something had happened to my son. What if you gave this old lady a heart attack, and how do you expect me to stand up for you? My mother naturally refused to speak up on her own. Tears welled up in her eyes as she stubbornly stared at her grandmother. Grandma snorted with a laugh. Tanghua, this is your fault. Hao is my own grandson, and it's just not right for him to be left out there. Since his mother is no longer in this world, why are you being so particular about it? My mother was completely stunned. This was completely different from what she had imagined. Mom, didn't you really dislike Jiang Erzhen? Grandma frowned and calmly said, Jiang Erzhen is Jiang Erzhen, and my eldest grandson is my eldest grandson. They are two different matters. You've been in this house for so many years and only given birth to 2 daughters. As the daughter-in-law of our Zhang family, since you can't bear a son, it's your duty to raise Hao properly. If you harbor any ill intentions, I, as the old lady of this house, will be the first to oppose it. My mother's face grew even darker. Great, not only did we fail to get rid of the little bastard, but now the little bastard has gained a powerful ally. Not only that, but Grandma also used the excuse of being closer to her eldest grandson to decide not to leave, planning to stay here permanently. I was trying desperately not to laugh out loud beside her. It's really a case of losing the chicken and breaking the rice bowl. 7. I secretly called my dad and exaggerated the story about my mom asking Grandma to be the matchmaker. Grandma is now dizzy and having palpitations from anger. After hearing this, my dad became even angrier and rushed home in a fury. He looked at my mom with disappointment, saying, You actually have such deep intentions. My mom is already in poor health. What will you do if you make her sick with your anger? Enough. If taking care of my son is really so difficult for you, I won't force you. There are plenty of people eager to be Hao's mother. We'll go get a divorce tomorrow, and you don't need to stir up trouble here anymore. Keeping a woman like you at home, I'm very worried about my son's safety. My mother didn't expect him to be so heartless, to think he would divorce his wife just for this illegitimate child. She opened her mouth to speak, but her throat felt clogged with cotton, making it hard to utter a sound. 8. Compared to the plot of her previous life, this time's development was completely different. No matter how much my mother tried to persuade him, my father was determined to Divorce her. She had no choice but to refuse to sign and kept dragging it out. During that time, she kept putting on a pitiful act in front of me. Minmin, help your mom out. Your dad is so heartless. I've been with him for over 20 years, and he just wants a divorce. He doesn't take me seriously at all. For a little bastard, he's such a fool. I focused intently on playing my game, casually brushing her off. This is something between you adults. How would a kid like me understand? Suddenly, she had an emotional breakdown, pulling at her own hair frantically. Do you have to push me to death to be happy? I'm your mother, not your enemy. You're just like your dad, a cold-hearted, heartless dog. I almost burst out laughing when I heard this. Mom, I'm just following your teachings. Everything is the best arrangement from heaven. Life is a practice, and these are all tests given to you by fate. My mother didn't expect me to say that. After a long pause, her eyes turned gloomy, and she slowly said, Zhang Minmin, are you here to disgust me? Everyone says that daughters are the closest to their mothers and can always empathize with them. It seems that this statement is not true at all. My daughter is not on the same page as her mother. I really feel heartbroken. I've raised you for so many years, but in the end, you don't wish me well. Do you think I really can't leave this family? If it weren't for you and your sister, I would have left long ago. I laughed. The saintly White Lotus has decided to stop being a saint. Everything is the best arrangement from heaven. Isn't that your old catchphrase? Where's this going? You're just walking away. My mom was so angry that she smashed the cup to pieces. I ignored her and continued to output. Zhou Tanghua, I truly feel sorry for you, having let your family fall into such a state. 9. After all, she is my own mother, and I still hope she can live well. I was just about to remind her to ask my dad for more money. I don't know if she was so angry she lost her mind, or if she truly didn't care at all. She didn't ask for a single cent, leaving with nothing, probably thinking that by maintaining her last bit of dignity, she could make my dad feel guilty. Let her be. Anyway, over the years, she has secretly saved up quite a bit of private money behind my dad's back. If she spends it more frugally, it should definitely be enough for the rest of her life. 10. Just as my mom had settled down, something happened on Zhang Ling's side. She ran up to me, crying as if her heart were breaking. Minmin, your brother-in-law wants to call off our engagement. Just like in my previous life, Lin Xiaoya, the female university student Zhang Ling had been supporting, ended up getting involved with Gu Cheng after all. She paid no attention to my earlier warnings, and now that the situation is irreversible, she's panicking. In the past, I would have been the first to charge forward and drive away the other woman. Now, just send off the big saint mother, and now comes a little saint mother. I played dumb. Sister, didn't you say you were good sisters with her? Zhang Ling said bitterly. I treated her as a good sister, funded her college education, and covered all her living expenses, but she didn't treat me as a good sister at all. She even stole my fiancé. I smiled. Sister, you should take it in stride. Her family background is poor, and she's been pitiful since childhood. You're the most kind-hearted person. What's the harm in letting her have your husband? Zhang Ling looked at me incredulously. Minmin, what are you talking about? I shrugged. It's all thanks to the good teachings from you and Mom. Haven't you always said that people should be kind and generous, and even when others make mistakes, we should try to see things from their perspective? I thought that girl has had enough of a hard life, and since brother-in-law has good conditions, it's like she found a good home. Didn't you hope that she could escape the shadow of her original family by supporting her all these years? Sis, this is a good thing, a great merit. Zhang Ling looked at me as if I were a monster. Minmin, what's wrong with you today? Before, you always advised me to be wary of that bitch. Now that it's really happened as you said, why are you speaking up for her? I'm dying of laughter. She knows I tried to persuade her, yet she still wouldn't listen, always thinking that when something goes wrong, I should step up. I sighed helplessly. Maybe I'm just too narrow-minded, always assuming the worst in people. Now, I secretly vow to learn from you and Mom, to go with the flow in everything. Zhang Ling, seeing that I had no intention of standing up for her, left reluctantly. I bet she definitely won't let that scumbag couple live a good life. Sure enough, she actually came up with a method that hurts the enemy 800 but costs herself 1,000. She rushed into Gu Cheng's company with a few close friends and started smashing things. Coincidentally, Gu Cheng was in the conference room meeting with clients. Zhang Ling saw Lin Xiaoya sitting next to her, exchanging flirtatious glances with Gu Cheng, and instantly flew into a rage. Without a second thought, she stormed into the meeting room, grabbed Lin Xiaoya, and slapped her several times. You little bitch, I've provided you with food, clothing, and paid for your college education, and this is how you repay me. By seducing my husband, I'll teach you to be so shameless. Zhang Ling, along with her friends, dragged Lin Xiaoya by her hair and threw her to the ground. Lin Xiaoya was beaten senseless, unable to fight back, and could only curl up on the ground, screaming loudly, "Help, Mr. Gu, please save me." The client looked shocked, never expecting that just coming to sign a contract would turn into such a dramatic scene. Gu Cheng's face was dark with anger, repeatedly apologizing to the client. Gu Cheng shouted, "Stop it, have you had enough fun yet, Zhang Ling? I told you to stop, do you hear me?" Zhang Ling, already enraged, wasn't about to stop, cursing uncontrollably, "I'll beat you to death, you seductress, die, you slut." Gu Cheng gripped Zhang Ling's arm tightly. "Zhang Ling, calm down." Zhang Ling violently shook off Gu Cheng's control, grabbed the ashtray from the conference table, and smashed it towards Gu Cheng's head. "Get away, you're no good either." Gu Cheng was struck so hard that he staggered, clutching his forehead in pain. As he sat on the ground, shouting, "Call the police, what are you all standing around for?" The terrified client was speechless. Mr. Gu, you deal with this first, we can sign the contract another day." With that, he turned and left without looking back. Only then did the other employees in the company snap out of it, some calling for security, others dialing the police. Zhang Ling grabbed Lin Xiaoya, who was trying to flee, and grabbed a stool, smashing it wildly at her. "You're a mistress. Shameless, why didn't your parents drown you when you were young?" For a moment, cries, curses, and the sounds of fighting mingled together. Lin Xiaoya gradually couldn't make any sound. The incident was filmed by employees watching the commotion and posted online, quickly making it a trending topic. Gu Cheng was half dead with anger. He swore that Zhang Ling must pay the price. Police officers from the local police station quickly arrived to control the situation, and with many hands helping, they sent Lin Xiaoya and Gu Cheng to the hospital. Gu Cheng's forehead was directly split open, requiring over a dozen stitches. Lin Xiaoya fared even worse. Her nasal bone was broken, and she lost sight in one eye. Several ribs were broken from kicks. Her face was also disfigured, and Lin Xiaoya completely broke down in the hospital room. Gu Cheng wasn't much better. His forehead was slashed open by an ashtray, requiring more than 10 stitches. Two people grinned and swore they would make Zhang Ling face trial. Gu Cheng immediately called a lawyer to start the prosecution process. By the time my dad and I arrived, Zhang Ling and her girlfriends had already been taken to the police station. Zhang Ling saw us and burst into tears. "Dad, please save me, those scoundrels are suing me, I don't want to go to jail." I stepped forward and said, "Sister, how could you hit someone? That's illegal. If they insist on suing you, what can Dad do about it? As the saying goes, it's better to tear down a temple than to break up a marriage. Since they are in love, you should support them." My father looked at Zhang Ling with disappointment, as if she were a piece of iron that couldn't be forged into steel. "You've always been a gentle and virtuous girl since you were little, how could you do something so violent?" Zhang Ling burst into tears, gritting her teeth with hatred at the thought of Lin Xiaoya. "That shameless couple, they had the nerve to get into bed behind my back and steal my man. Am I not allowed to slap her a few times? If they end up having a little bastard, I swear I'll kill them." Zhang Lingyue became more and more agitated as she spoke, calling them dog man and woman, and little bastard, one after another. She made my father's face turn so green he couldn't bear to look. The more I listened, the more I felt she was cursing herself. My father grew even angrier and scolded, "You should reflect on yourself properly. I can't control you anymore." With that, he turned and left. No surprise, he's my father. He's so heartless. Now that he's got a son, he's ready to abandon his daughter without a second thought. "If you're going to disown me, then I'll cut you off too." I turned to leave right away, and Zhang Ling let out a desperate scream behind me. "Come back, you can't leave me here to suffer. I don't want to go to jail. Things have spiraled this far, and it'll be nearly impossible to fix everything." Lin Xiaoya was rated as having a level 6 disability, while Zhang Ling, the mastermind, was sentenced to 10 years for intentional injury. The other girls were sentenced to between 1 and 3 years respectively. I heard that after hearing the verdict, Zhang Ling fainted in court on the spot. In my previous life, I stepped in to deal with the mistress, only to be retaliated against by her. This time, it's her turn. 11. My life gradually returned to calm, and I hadn't seen my mother for a long time. After she left, I occasionally still heard news about her, but gradually, there was no news at all. 2 years have passed in the blink of an eye, and after graduation, I smoothly entered my dad's company for an internship. Starting from the grassroots assembly line, I became familiar with every position in rotation. Although my father had long since decided that the half-breed was his future successor, he was still willing to nurture a daughter who worked hard, took her responsibilities seriously, and was down to earth. When that little bastard grows up and takes over the company, he still expects me to support him from behind the scenes. When I was temporarily transferred to the Human Resources Department, I took a quick look through the resumes received by HR this month. I flipped through a few pages and was suddenly stunned. Isn't this my saintly, pure-hearted mother? She's going to work as a cleaner. How dare she submit her resume? Well, it makes sense. After being married to my dad for so many years, she never got involved in company matters. She never showed her face either, so it's no surprise that none of the employees, from top to bottom, recognized her. I called her from the HR department, asking her to come to the company for an interview. When we met again, there was a bit of awkwardness. In just 2 short years, my mother's appearance changed dramatically. Once meticulously maintained and untouched by worldly concerns, the noble lady now bears the weariness of life on her face. I spoke without much emotion. Mom, you can't do cleaning work. You don't have money in your hand. Her eyes suddenly reddened. Minmin, I can't do anything, you know that. I looked at her calmly, and then, she suddenly said, Minmin, please help me. I watched without speaking. Her body kept trembling, and after a long while, she said in a trembling voice, Minmin, please put in a good word for me in front of your dad. I'm willing to remarry him. I thought for a moment, maybe you should go home. My mother's dull eyes suddenly lit up. Really, Minmin, are you willing to help me and let me go home? I nodded, of course. After all, you're still my mom, but to go back, you need a reason. My dad has been looking for a nanny for how lately, so I'll take charge and hire you back. My mother hesitated, going back under the guise of a nanny. I explained to her, first, you'll earn some money. I'll pay you twice the market rate for a nanny. Second, being close at hand gives you the advantage of frequently appearing in front of my dad, reminding him of all the years we've spent together. He'll soon remember how good you've been. My mother was overjoyed and agreed without a second thought, but she didn't know that my father had gone abroad yesterday and wouldn't be back for 3 months, and at home, the women my father brought back came and went like flowing water. Just thinking about my mother's expression as she played the role of a nanny at home made me uncontrollably excited. As I expected, my mother had to take care of the little bastard, who was at an age that even dogs would find annoying, while also serving the little mom, brought home by my father. Whenever the little bastard was slightly displeased, he would kick and hit my mother. At first, she would try to discipline him, but she was repeatedly scolded by my grandmother, who reminded her to remember her place, to regain her footing and avoid being driven out. My mother had no choice but to swallow her pride and endure it. But now, this little mom isn't so easy to deal with. Upon learning that the new nanny at home was his ex-wife, he intensified his torment of her. Either the bird's nest soup was too cold, or the bath water was too hot. Either the dishes were too spicy, or the soup was too salty. In short, he found fault with her for every possible reason. Fortunately, I moved out a long time ago, so even when I occasionally come back, I pretend not to see anything. My stepmother is quite shrewd, and seeing my attitude, she doesn't hold back at all. Whenever my mom looks at me with pleading eyes, I immediately open my laptop. To deal with work, my main strategy is to play dumb and act clueless. I finally waited until my dad came back, but before my mom could say anything, stepmom accused me first. I threw myself into my dad's arms and cried for a long time, telling him about the abuse my mom had inflicted on me and the little bastard over the past 3 months. My dad knew she was going home to work as a maid, but he didn't expect it to happen while he was away. My 2 precious ones have actually suffered so much injustice. My father glared at me, and I preemptively questioned Zhou Tanghua. Mom, how could you be so excessive? Back then, you begged me in tears to help you, and that's why I let you come back, thinking you could make up for your mistakes. I never expected you to be two-faced. I'm busy with work all day, and I thought you could definitely take good care of my brother and stepmother. You've really let me down. I know you still want to remarry my dad, but your behavior makes me embarrassed for you. My father's face darkened, as if it could drip with gloom. Still thinking about remarrying, maybe in the next life. My mother couldn't take it anymore. Her face flushed red with anger, and she was panting heavily. She turned and rushed into the kitchen, and I immediately felt something was wrong. Based on my experience reading so many reincarnation novels, Zhou Tanghua was highly likely to do something extreme in a fit of impulse. I quickly ran into the room. Just as I locked the door, I heard my stepmother scream, "Ah, help, murder. I opened the monitoring software to check the living room, and my dad was already lying on the ground, clutching his neck, with a pair of scissors stuck in it, probably hit the main artery. The blood wouldn't stop no matter how he tried to cover it, gushing out in torrents. My stepmother was so terrified she scrambled out of the house. Only my mom remained standing there, dazed, muttering repeatedly, "You deserved it, you deserved it. If you're going to blame someone, blame yourself." The outcome was that Zhou Tanghua went to prison to reunite with Zhang Ling, and the stepmother was so frightened that she dared not set foot in the door again. Although Zhang Yingzi managed to survive, he was left completely incapacitated, lying motionless in his hospital bed. Everyone received the ending they deserved. I almost forgot, there's one more. I called the company's legal counsel and took him for a paternity test on the grounds of suspecting that Xiao Yi was not my father's biological son. The test results, without exception, showed no blood relation to my father. Hearing this conclusion, Grandma was the first to disagree, hugging her beloved grandson and saying repeatedly, "That's impossible. How is my own grandson? There must be something wrong with the test results." I shook my head with a smile. "Grandma, you're old now, Dad can't take charge anymore. And Mom and Sister are in prison. I'm the only one holding this family together. So don't argue with me, what I say goes. I want to send my illegitimate child away, but my grandmother firmly disagrees. There's no other way. I can only let my grandmother take the little bastard back to the countryside, with child support sent on time every month, but the condition is that the little bastard has no inheritance rights." My grandmother couldn't win against me and was forced to agree, taking the little bastard far away with a sum of money. After resolving all the troubles, I can finally focus all my attention on the company's development. When Zhang Ling was released from prison after serving his sentence, the world had already changed completely. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. After my mother passed away, my father married a new stepmother, who said that only one of my sister and I could stay. My sister was sent to a poor, mountainous area. Unable to bear the harsh farm work under the sun and wind, she fled the mountains under the cover of night, only to be abducted by human traffickers halfway and taken to another mountain, where she was locked in a dark cellar. Meanwhile, I continued to live as the privileged daughter of a wealthy family, graduating from a prestigious university and eventually becoming engaged to the richest man. My sister, who was later rescued, harbored deep resentment and stabbed me to death. At the wedding, waking up again, my sister is doing everything she can to stay in the wealthy family. I know she has also been reborn. The night before I was sent to the mountains, my sister looked down on me and said, "This time, it's your turn to be the lowly sow." I sneered coldly. What she thought was a paradise of wealth and luxury was actually a more terrifying battlefield than the mountains. I died on the stage at the wedding, with petals filling the sky against the backdrop of splattered blood. A sharp knife was deeply embedded in my heart, and I fell backward to the ground, my pupils gradually dilating. Blood stained the white wedding dress. The joyful and warm wedding of a moment ago had turned into a crime scene filled with screams. The next second, Song Lan's laughter was maniacal as she spat at me. "Song Ying, all of this is your fault. If I had been the one who stayed back then, I would be just like you. This wedding of the century should have been mine. Go to hell, you bitch." She still seemed unsatisfied, viciously pulling out the knife and stabbing it repeatedly into other parts of my body. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day 5 years ago when my father decided to send away either me or my sister. On the evening after my mother's funeral, my father called my sister and me over, with Aunt Ching standing beside him, looking particularly kind. Aunt Ching wiped her moist eyes regretfully. "Auntie knows you both must want to stay, but my energy is limited, so I can only keep one of you." Alas, Dad smiled and crouched down. "I bought your favorite ice cream. How about one for each of you?" I stared at the ice cream in Dad's hand. This was his test for us sisters. The one who showed the most filial piety would get to stay, while the other would be sent to our mother's impoverished hometown in the mountains, enduring unbearable farm work. Song Lan suddenly pushed me aside, picked up the ice cream, and proudly handed it to Dad. "I won't eat it. All the good things are for Dad." She was repeating my answer from my past life, word for word. As expected, a kind smile appeared on Dad's face. Dad patted Song Lan's head and nodded approvingly. Good. Lan Lan is truly the most filial daughter." Aunt Cheng's eyes flickered with a hint of wariness, but she maintained a smile on her face. "Lan Lan is so clever and quick-witted. Auntie really likes a daughter like you. I'll definitely treat you well in the future." Song Lan didn't catch the hidden meaning in Aunt Cheng's words. Instead, she was immersed in the immense joy of finally being able to stay. She raised her chin proudly and looked at me with a challenging gaze. I knew Song Lan had also been reborn. She had used every trick in the book to stay in the wealthy family, but she didn't know that I had been reborn too. Song Lan and I are different. When she was a child, she fell seriously ill and needed a bone marrow transplant. Neither my father nor my mother met the transplant requirements, so I was born the following year. After Song Lan recovered, my father and mother's attitude toward her could be described as doting. From childhood, Song Lan got whatever she wanted. She didn't need to work hard to receive my parents' care, while I had to excel at everything just to earn a meager word of praise. Too, in her previous life, when faced with the choice between two ice creams, she didn't hesitate to pick one, even threatening me with a look not to choose, insisting that both ice creams be left for her. When Mom was still alive, Song Lan was the apple of Dad's eye. Now, with Aunt Cheng as our stepmother, we have become less important in Dad's eyes. Song Lan didn't understand this, and she never imagined that something as simple as ice cream would become the reason she was sent to the mountainous area. Song Lan was sent away, and within a few days, she wrote letters complaining about the poor environment there. The mountainous area had no Western restaurants she loved to eat at, no shopping malls she enjoyed strolling through, and what was even more unbearable was that there wasn't even any signal. Song Lan wrote dozens of letters, naively believing that her father had sent her away because he was too busy after marrying Aunt Cheng. She thought that once her father was done with his busy schedule, she would be able to return in style and continue living as the high and mighty young lady she once was. Little did she know that every letter she wrote was intercepted by Aunt Cheng, torn to pieces, and thrown into the trash. At first, her father did mention Song Lan at home, but as time went on, her name never came up again. Unable to bear it any longer, Song Lan chose one night to leave the village, only to find that after crossing one mountain, there was still another. Thirsty and hungry, Song Lan began to lose heart, thinking she should just go back. After all, although going back would be tiring, with those poor relatives around, she would at least have a bite to eat. Song Lan started heading back, but halfway there, she encountered a human trafficker. Song Lan was trafficked to another village, first tied up at the village chief's house, and later she was simply locked in a cellar with iron shackles, subjected to humiliation. Song Lan looked down upon those poor relatives from the mountainous areas, who searched for her day and night in the hills. In the process, her 70-year-old second uncle accidentally rolled down the slope and was found cold and lifeless. 5 years later, Song Lan was discovered by a journalist who had come to interview, and she was rescued. The journalist sent her back to the city. At that time, train stations and bus stations were flooded with my advertisements. During my university years, I gained tens of thousands of fans after appearing on camera once, and I naturally signed with a talent agency. Within less than a year, I debuted in a low-budget web series, which unexpectedly became a huge hit. I became a star with my own following, and this year, solid evidence of my relationship with the wealthiest person was revealed. I am about to marry into a family even more prominent than the Song family. Song Lan's jealousy and rage shattered her reason, and she stabbed me countless times at the wedding scene. Since I've been given a second chance at life, I'll grant her wish. I'm curious to see how a useless person like her can survive in the Song family, where hidden daggers lurk in the shadows. I walked out of the house carrying a suitcase, and my father patted my shoulder with a hint of heartache. Aunt Cheng wore a reluctant expression. Ying, don't worry. Your dad and I will definitely visit you during the holidays. I know all of this is just a facade put on by Aunt Cheng. After all her painstaking efforts, she finally made it to the day my mother passed away, and now she's proudly married into our family by my father. She probably wishes that both Song Lan and I would disappear, the farther the better. However, given her somewhat awkward position, she didn't dare to act too boldly right after marrying in, fearing gossip, so she had to first get rid of either me or Song Lan, and then focus on dealing with the other. Song Lan sneered coldly. Life in the mountains isn't that easy. It's your turn to go be a breeding, so this time. 3. Father glared at Song Lan with displeasure and scolded. Ying is still your sister. I've truly spoiled you rotten. Aunt Cheng comforted Dad. Forget it, the child is still young and doesn't understand. Song Lan was scolded by her father for the first time, her face filled with defiance. She habitually threw a tantrum like a spoiled young lady and went upstairs without looking back. Dad's face darkened. Aunt Cheng continued to console him, seemingly speaking up for Song Lan, but in reality, every word she said was adding fuel to the fire. Aunt Cheng was no pushover. Even in my past life, I almost suffered a loss at her hands. Unfortunately, Song Lan didn't know yet and was still gloating, thinking I would meet the same tragic fate as she did in her previous life. I first took a plane, then transferred to a coach, and finally rode a donkey cart into the mountainous area. By the time I arrived, it was already late, and rural folks generally go to bed early, but my relatives were eagerly waiting at the village entrance to welcome me. These were all relatives from my mother's hometown. Over a dozen simply dressed elders gathered around, looking at me with cheerful smiles. "This girl, she's so pretty. Are you hungry? Auntie has some baked cakes here." I've been holding them close to my chest, so they're still warm. "Xuanzi, as her cousin, don't you know you should help your sister with her luggage? What's the use of raising you? I might as well have given birth to a piece of braised pork." I stayed at my second granduncle's house. Hearing that I was coming, my second granduncle, who was in poor health, had spent several days beforehand repairing the earthen house. I stayed in a pink bedroom, where even the roof beams were tied with pink bows, though it still couldn't be called luxurious. Every corner was filled with the old man's clumsy yet sincere affection. The next day, I followed them to the farmland, where the rice paddies stretched as far as the eye could see. My aunts wore dark-colored clothes and uniform plastic rain boots, bending down again and again to plant the seeds. They wouldn't let me work, insisting I sit on the ridge and watch. I shook my head and said, "Aunt, I'm already an adult. I can't just be an idle person who only eats." My aunts glanced at me in surprise, then showed an appreciative expression. They carefully taught me how to transplant rice seedlings and farm, and I basically learned it all in one morning. At noon, when the sun was at its fiercest, my aunts and I went to rest in a small shed built on the ridge of the field. My aunts joked, "This little shed was built overnight by your eldest uncle and the others, specifically for you to rest in." "Yeah, Yingying, you must have been living a good life in the city. We absolutely can't let you feel too much of a gap and become unhappy as soon as you arrive. Otherwise, how could we elders have the face to call ourselves that?" I smiled. Although life in the mountain village was a bit poor, everyone here still had a warm heart that never grew cold. Over the course of 2 months, I gradually mastered the skills of farm work. Not only did I get some exercise, but I also discovered a secret about this small mountain village. One night, after finishing a day of farm work, I was drenched in sweat and felt uncomfortable all over. Just as I was about to rinse off with the cold water from the vat, my cousin Xuanzi mysteriously said he would take me to a good place. He took me to a spring at the foot of the mountain. "The water here is warm. Try it if you don't believe me." I touched the clear spring water, and a warm sensation came from my fingertips, making my eyes sparkle with excitement. My cousin Xuanzi thought this small spring was a miracle, but I knew it was no miracle at all. It might actually be a precious hot spring resource hidden in this mountain. The small mountain village was beautiful, with simple and honest villagers. If the hot springs were properly developed, it could potentially become a tourist paradise, a hidden gem for visitors. I knew that opportunities shouldn't be missed, so I hurriedly asked my uncle to take me to the nearest town in his donkey cart. I contacted a geological survey agency, and they sent people to the small mountain village for an on-site investigation. A month later, the test results came out. The mountain where the small village is located indeed has abundant hot spring resources, and not only that, the soil on the mountain is particularly suitable for growing crops. I brought the test results report back to the small village, and my aunts chattered with beaming smiles. "Really? So if we dig out the hot springs, we can get people to come and have fun?" "Xuanzi, you discovered hot springs and didn't say anything earlier. Damn it, I might as well have given birth to a pig instead of you." Cousin Xuanzi stood pitifully in the corner, his thick eyebrows drooping innocently. How was I supposed to know what a hot spring is? More than a dozen family members in my hometown looked at me with full trust, and my uncle said with a smile, "Yingying, we farmers are uneducated. We'll do whatever you tell us to do." My aunts nodded in agreement, saying, "Exactly, we fully support you." The eldest among them, my second granduncle, took a puff of his pipe and silently pulled out a crumpled passbook from a hidden drawer compartment. The amount in the passbook was exactly 80,000 yuan, undoubtedly the savings my second granduncle had set aside for his funeral expenses. "Take it and spend it. If it's not enough, your grandpa still has more." The second granduncle grinned. His face, weathered by over 70 years, was covered with wrinkles, yet he looked so kind and amiable. The small mountain village had just over 100 households. With the persuasion of the aunts, the entire village agreed to dig out the hot springs and vigorously develop tourism. Logically, after the summer vacation, I should have returned to university, but I couldn't bear to leave the small mountain village, so I applied for a 1-year leave of absence. I went to the city to go through the process of attracting investment and finally persuaded a business owner to inject the first investment into the small mountain village. The small mountain village had been under development for 3 months, and we finally excavated a large-scale hot spring. I also applied to the relevant authorities to build a signal tower on the mountain, so the backward villagers finally established a connection with the outside world. My cousin Schwanzi was the first in the village to buy a smartphone, and with him leading the way, the young people in the village gradually started to own mobile phones. In my previous life, I entered the entertainment industry and had long understood the principles of hype. I couldn't afford to hire a troll army, but the more than 100 households in the village voluntarily went online to comment and like. Not long after, 2 journalists from social news outlets came to interview us, and the tourism development of the small mountain village began to take shape. The news of the small mountain village's thriving development reached my father's ears, and after more than half a year, he called me for the first time. "Ying, the Mid-Autumn Festival is coming soon, come home for a visit." I agreed. Although it's only been a little over half a year, I'm already curious about whether Song Lan, who stayed at home, has started living the life of a wealthy young lady she always dreamed of. For since the interview aired, public attention on the small mountain village has increased immediately. Then, 2 more companies proactively approached me and decided to invest, one of which is no smaller in scale than my father's company. Perhaps sensing my potential, Dad specially held a banquet to welcome me home. At the banquet, people came and went wearing designer gowns, with even a simple accessory on them worth an entire year's income for a family in a small mountain village. I arrived a bit late, walking into the villa in a plain white shirt and jeans, standing out like an outsider. Dad, dressed in a suit and tie, frowned with disdain when he saw me. "How could you come dressed like this? Over the past 6 months, my skin has darkened by more than a shade, turning into a healthy wheat color, and my eyes are bright and full of life. I just finished an interview with a TV station." Upon hearing this, my father beamed with pride and explained to those around him, "Sorry, my daughter was late because she just finished an interview. After all, she was recently selected as one of the top 10 model workers in the national mountainous areas." I had no interest in the flattery-filled banquet. After looking around and not seeing Song Lan, I walked into the garden to admire the rare flowers my father had carefully cultivated. A series of footsteps sounded nearby. I looked up and happened to meet Song Lan's teasing gaze. Song Lan was still the same as ever. I don't know if it's because she's overly pursuing the aesthetic of being fair, young, and thin, but after not seeing her for over half a year, she's lost a lot of weight. Her waist is frighteningly thin, as if it could snap with just a little force. Song Lan looked at me disdainfully. "It's been a year, and you can actually endure that godforsaken place? Look at you, you're practically a country bumpkin, so uncouth." I raised an eyebrow. "The construction in the mountain village is quite good now. The villagers of the hot spring in the small mountain village have almost finished digging it out. I've hired a group of professional construction workers to build the resort villa, and they should be able to complete the progress before the end of the year." But it's clear that Song Lan doesn't believe it. In her impression, the small mountain village is still a remote and impoverished place without even a signal. She wanted to mock me a few more times, when suddenly a reckless figure crashed hard into Song Lan. Song Lan's slender arms and legs were almost knocked to the ground by the force. Staggering several steps before finally steadying herself, she then saw a young man, dressed in bright and luxurious clothes, holding a remote control and arrogantly raising his head. "Get out of the way, you're in the way of my remote-controlled car." I narrowed my eyes, all too familiar with this young man. Song Yang is the son of Aunt Cheng and my father, kept outside the home until my mother passed away. The reason Aunt Cheng has maintained her position so firmly all these years, aside from knowing how to act cute and play the weak, is largely because she gave my father a son. After all, a son holds a different place in a father's heart compared to a daughter. The moment she saw Song Yang, Song Lan's face twisted slightly, as if she were on the verge of unleashing her temper as the young lady of the house. However, mindful of Song Yang, who was treasured by her father like a jewel in his palm, she chose to swallow her anger and stand aside. Song Yang, as proud as a little lion, rolled his eyes mischievously. As if deliberately trying to provoke, he maneuvered the remote-controlled car to repeatedly bump into Song Lan's high heels. Song Lan took a deep breath and lifted her foot, taking another step to the side, but with that step, she accidentally stepped on the remote-controlled car. Instantly, Song Yang flew into a rage and hurled the remote control at her. Song Lan let out a startled cry, narrowly dodging the remote control. "5, it's all your fault. my remote control car is dirty. Faced with Song Yang, who was 7 or 8 years younger than her and still aggressive, Song Lan's temper as the eldest daughter was about to flare up when the servant beside her coughed loudly. "Miss, this is the young master, don't forget your status." In an instant, Song Lan trembled, glaring resentfully at the young Song Yang. She must have suffered at Song Yang's hands before, knowing that if she tried to teach him a lesson, her father would eventually come to settle the score with her. Aunt Cheng has been whispering in his ear for so long, and with Song Yang being the only son, the scales in their father's heart have long been heavily tilted. Even Song Lan is no longer held in high regard in their father's eyes. Song Lan forced a smile, bowing and scraping to please him. "It's my fault, sister, let me help you clean the toy car." "Okay, no way." Song Yang's eyes darted around as he made an outrageous demand. "Kneel down and lick it clean." "How is that possible?" Song Lan's emotions surged violently, her eyes revealing crimson blood vessels as she clenched her teeth tightly at the corner of her mouth. The servant stared sinisterly at the pale-faced Song Lan. "Miss, are you going to defy the young master's words?" Song Lan choked up, her chest heaving with anger as she clenched her fists tightly. "I knew all too well what the consequences would be if I defied Song Yang. Kneeling as punishment was the least of it. Once, I was locked in a dark room for 3 days and 3 nights. When I finally came out, I was nearly dead from thirst, hanging on by just a thread." The servant's threat had its effect. Song Lan knelt on the uneven cobblestone path in the garden, hesitantly picking up the toy car. Suddenly, a wave of nausea hit her, and she turned her head aside, retching. "Ha ha ha ha, so much fun, even more fun than a dog." Song Yang clapped his hands, and the servants joined in with laughter, watching Song Lan's dignity trampled into the dirt. I raised one eyebrow. It was only then that Song Yang noticed me. He didn't know who I was and thought I was just another servant from somewhere. "You, come here, help me tie my bow tie." Song Yang arrogantly pointed to his own bow tie, while Song Lan looked at me with a smug, triumphant expression, a faint smile playing at the corners of her mouth. From the look in her eyes, I could guess that she was practically hoping I would suffer the same humiliation of being bullied by Song Yang. I curved my lips into a smile, took a step forward, and asked, "Are you sure you want me to help you tie your bow tie?" "Enough nonsense," Song Yang said with an impatient look. "If you don't do a good job, believe it or not, I can have a few people beat you up right now. It's not like I haven't done this kind of thing before." My fingers slowly touched the soft fabric of the tie, then suddenly tightened. The tie strangled Song Yang's neck with all its might. In just a few seconds, his face turned red. He grabbed and scratched at my arms. But since I often did farm work, his strength was no match for even a village dog. He couldn't resist me at all. Just as Song Yang was about to be choked to death, I let go. "Madman, you," cough, 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 "madman." Song Yang's eyes bulged, his face twisted in a grimace as he pointed at me. "What are you standing there for? Tie her up for me." Song Lan, standing nearby, was completely stunned, seemingly never expecting that I would dare to lay a hand on Song Yang. The commotion in the garden drew the attention of my father, along with a crowd of curious and gossipy guests. Aunt Cheng, seeing her son being bullied, immediately rushed to embrace Song Yang, and with the skill of a seasoned actress, squeezed out tears in an instant. "Honey, look, our Yang Yang got beaten up." "Yang Yang is your only son?" Dad's brows furrowed into several deep creases. Song Lan leaned close to me and sneered mockingly. "Serves you right. Let's see how Dad punishes you later. You're so arrogant, but in the end, you'll end up worse off than me, won't you?" I glanced at her. Her pristine white dress was stained with dirty mud from kneeling earlier, and her hair was disheveled. I said, "You'd better take care of yourself first." Song Lan's expression stiffened, then she glared at me with disdain, waiting to see my fate. She didn't believe that my father would let me off easily this time after I had offended Song Yang. Song Yang was still too young. He pushed aside Aunt Cheng, who was crying and playing the victim, and pointed at me in front of so many people, saying, "I'm going to beat her to death today. Dad, you can't just stand by and do nothing." Song Yang's arrogant and overbearing words were overheard by the guests, who began to point fingers at the family. Father's face instantly couldn't hold up. Aunt Cheng noticed father's emotional change and discreetly tugged at Song Yang's sleeve, urging her son to shut up quickly. But Song Yang had long been spoiled rotten. He was the little tyrant in this household. Not only did he threaten to beat me to death, but he even started spewing filthy and vulgar language, so unpleasant that the guests cleared their throats, and whispers began to ripple through the crowd. is this the young master of the Song family? Such poor manners. If the Song family can raise a child like this, they must not have a single decent person among them. TSK, I won't have anything to do with the Song family from now on. These words fell clearly into Dad's ears, stinging his eardrums like needles. He suddenly roared at Song Yang, "Shut up, where did you learn such foul language at such a young age? I've spoiled you too much." Song Yang stiffened his neck and retorted, "I'm not wrong, she's the one who's wrong." Dad's anger escalated further. "That's your sister." Aunt Cheng, seeing the situation, was about to feign grievance, but she didn't expect me to suddenly speak up weakly. "Dad, don't be angry, it's all my fault. I've been living in the mountains for the past year, so it's normal for my brother not to recognize me. The tactic of showing weakness isn't just something Aunt Cheng can use. Naturally, I can employ it too." Sure enough, upon hearing my words, Dad instantly felt a pang of heartache for me. "No, it's not your fault, Ying. It's Dad who has let you down." The banquet ended on a sour note, and to make it up to me, Dad gave me 5 million as an investment fund for the mountain village. Song Yang had all his computers, phones, and tablets confiscated. He had to strictly adhere to the schedule, spending every day studying except for sleeping and eating. Aunt Cheng felt sorry for her son and tried to influence her husband, but he suddenly turned hostile and pushed her away harshly. "Now everyone in the circle is saying I have low character, all because of your precious son. If you dare mention it again, I'll lock him up in confinement, believe it or not." Aunt Cheng's face turned pale as she knelt on the ground. Since she married into the family, she had never been treated this way by her husband. Dad asked me to stay at home for a few more days, and coincidentally, several companies have extended olive branches, so I took the opportunity to handle the collaboration matters. Once, as I passed by Song Yang's room, a rude voice of a young man came from behind. "Hey, stop." I turned a deaf ear, completely treating Song Yang as if he were air, and continued calling my aunts to let them know I was safe. The sound of hurried footsteps approached, and just as Song Yang was about to snatch the phone from my hand, I tightly gripped his wrist. Song Yang stared at me fiercely, opening his mouth that seemed to have spewed filth. "My mom said, you're a motherless bastard, get out of my house right now." I gazed calmly at Song Yang, who thought his words had stung me, proudly lifting his chin, yet the next moment, without any hesitation, I slapped Song Yang across the face. Song Yang was stunned, and the servant was stunned. Before Song Yang could even get angry, I slapped him across the face again. Song Yang's head was ringing from the slap, and then he heard my taunt. "A bastard born to an outside woman dares to argue with me. If you don't believe me, go ask my sister Song Lan. Neither of us sisters are afraid of you." With that, I turned and walked away. I cleverly redirected Song Yang's anger toward me onto Song Lan, making him think I dared to slap him only because Song Lan had my back. Song Yang stood in place, and the first thing he did after coming to his senses was rush to Song Lan's room to settle the score with her. Not long after, Song Lan's startled screams echoed from upstairs, mixed with the sounds of the two of them wrestling. Song Lan shouted at the top of her lungs, "What are you doing?" But Song Yang paid no attention to Song Lan's furious roar. He jumped up, grabbed her long hair, and dragged her out without a second thought. Song Yang was the little tyrant at home, and even if Song Lan resisted, she didn't dare to use much force. As a result, she was dragged forcefully into the hallway and received a resounding slap. Song Yang shouted loudly, "How dare you not fear me?" 7. That day, the villa was in chaos. Song Yang was pushed down the stairs by Song Lan, and the servants quickly rushed the young master to the hospital. The examination results showed that Song Yang had only suffered a common sprained ankle. Aunt Cheng deliberately exaggerated Song Yang's injuries with tearful sobs, and Dad flew into a huge rage. From the moment Song Yang was taken to the hospital, Song Lan knelt at the corner of the hospital corridor, her back stubbornly rigid, her lips bitten until they were stained with blood. I walked up to her and glanced at her carelessly. "Is this the life you wanted?" Song Lan snorted with a laugh. "Don't think you've won, just wait. One day, I'll make you regret it." To say Song Lan is foolish, she truly hasn't let me down. She still thinks that her current predicament is entirely because of me. In my previous life, I stayed in the Song family, appearing on the surface as the glamorous eldest daughter, while in secret, Aunt Cheng and her son caused me countless troubles, being forced to kneel in punishment, locked in a dark room, beaten. If it weren't for my cautious nature, these punishments would have fallen on me. After I recognized the situation, I studied diligently without the slightest relaxation while racking my brains to build connections. Only by climbing higher than the Song family would the Song family treat me with respect during the day. I immersed myself wholeheartedly in the lab. At night, I navigated social gatherings, adapting to different situations and catering to others' preferences. In my previous life, I endured for 3 years before finally becoming a top-tier actress. While also holding the halo of a prestigious university graduate, the Song family no longer dared to neglect me, and even the arrogant Song Yang had to watch his words around me. In this life, I secured sponsorship from well-known enterprises through the development of a small mountain village and gained the title of a model worker through media hype. Regardless of which identity, both prove my capabilities and demonstrate that I am irreplaceable in this family. However, Song Lan clearly doesn't understand this. She still believes that as long as she takes my place and stays in the Song family, she can live a carefree and unrestrained life. Song Yang had only sprained his ankle, yet he made a big show of staying in the hospital for several days. During that time, Song Lan knelt in the corner of the hallway, drawing stares from onlookers like a monkey in a zoo. I knew Song Lan would cause trouble, but I didn't expect to receive a call from the hospital a few days later. I rushed to the hospital, where my second uncle lay pale and motionless on the bed, his eyes tightly shut and his forehead beaded with cold sweat. Uncles and aunts, covered in dust, gathered around the hospital bed. I quickly asked, "What happened?" It all started when Cousin Xuanzi received a call from an unfamiliar woman who claimed to be my sister in the city, saying that I had been in an accident and was taken to the hospital. Upon hearing this, second uncle Grandpa immediately decided to head into the city without hesitation. Uncles and aunts, worried about the elderly man's mobility, hurriedly followed along. My great-uncle had never left the mountains in his life, let alone seen an airplane. Deep down, he believed that such things were the work of evil spirits. For my sake, he overcame his resistance and took his first flight. After getting off the plane, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest and fainted before he could finish speaking. Hospital tests revealed that he had a heart condition. Fortunately, he was taken to the hospital in time, or the consequences could have been unimaginable. The aunts wiped their tears. "We called you, but you didn't answer. We were scared to death. I was out all day today discussing a collaboration, and my phone was turned off." The second granduncle's heart condition is urgent and requires immediate stent placement. I paid for the second granduncle's medical expenses up front, and without a word after leaving the hospital, I returned to the villa and kicked open Song Lan's door. Song Lan was trying on a new skirt, and without a word, I snatched it and covered her face with it. "Song Ying, are you trying to kill me, you crazy woman? Are you going to kill me for those lowly villagers?" Song Lan's twisted features pressed against the fabric, and I gritted my teeth as I asked, "Why did you harm my family?" Song Lan stiffened, then burst into hysterical laughter. "Song Ying, you're nothing but a wretch. Only you care about those poor relatives of yours, but I really didn't expect them to mean so much to you. I told you I'd make you regret it." I glared furiously at Song Lan's face, increasing the pressure in my hand, feeling the cloth covering her face tighten more and more, so much that she could hardly breathe. Song Lan grew a bit panicked. "No, you can't lay a hand on me. I'm about to marry Jiang Lin, the richest man." I loosened my grip. "You said you're marrying who?" Seizing the opportunity, Song Lan pushed me away and narrowed her eyes arrogantly. "The richest man, Jiang Lin." I gazed quietly at Song Lan, then suddenly sneered. "Fine, go ahead and marry him." 8. In her desperation to marry Jiang Lin, Song Lan had thrown all shame to the wind, spreading the word that she would marry no one but Jiang Lin. Song Lan even went to great lengths to find out Jiang Lin's whereabouts, hoping to arrange a chance encounter, but before she could put her plan into action, Jiang Lin sent his secretary to discuss the marriage arrangements. Song Lan was overjoyed. Had she really managed to snag the richest man so effortlessly? The secretary brought a prenuptial agreement, which stated that even if Song Lan married into the family, she would have no claim to any of the assets. Song Lan's smile froze on her face, but in her desire to marry into wealth, she hesitated for a moment before signing. She still clung to the beautiful fantasy that once she married and spent every day with the young and handsome tycoon, she was sure feelings would develop. By then, wouldn't the prenuptial agreement just be a worthless piece of paper? Song Lan was suddenly full of pride at home, and when she saw me, she proudly boasted that she was about to become the wife of the richest man. I looked at her as if she were a fool. In her previous life, Song Lan only knew that I had married the richest man, so as soon as she found out that the current richest man was Jiang Lin, she couldn't wait to marry him. Little did she know that the person I actually married was Jiang Lin's son, Jiang Chen. In my previous life, in order to escape the Song family, I met Jiang Chen through connections. The moment we met, we both understood the hidden ambition in each other. Jiang Lin has been a philanderer all his life, never turning down any woman with a bit of charm. Jiang Chen is the child of Jiang Lin and his first wife. Besides Jiang Chen, there are several illegitimate children outside the family eyeing the Jiang family's wealth. I pretended not to know Jiang Chen and deliberately got close to Jiang Lin to find out his thoughts. In return, Jiang Chen paved the way for me in the entertainment industry. That interview that made me an overnight sensation seemed like a coincidence, but it was actually a carefully arranged inevitability. Jiang Chen and I worked together seamlessly, being ruthless to others and even more so to ourselves. After Jiang Lin passed away, the will stated that the estate was to be divided equally among all his children. Without even thinking, I directly altered the will. Jiang Chen delayed for 3 days before announcing Jiang Lin's death. By the time those illegitimate children arrived, it was already too late. Jiang Chen inherited all of the Jiang family's assets. Our interests should have ended there, but Jiang Chen still comes to see me from time to time. Once, we were photographed by paparazzi, and the pictures were posted online. Surprisingly, Jiang Chen publicly announced that we are in a romantic relationship. Jiang Chen said he needed a soulmate for a wife, and I happened to fit the bill. I don't understand, but I respect it. In my previous life, I had planned to ask Jiang Chen after the wedding, what exactly were his feelings for me. Was it just using me, or did he actually like me? Unfortunately, I never got the chance to ask before Song Lan stabbed me to death. Since it was a second marriage, Jiang Lin didn't take it seriously at all, and the date was just a random Sunday. A row of Maseratis was parked at the entrance of the Song family's villa. Song Lan was upstairs in the bedroom putting on makeup when the doorbell rang, and I went to open the door. A familiar face came into view, a pair of peach blossom eyes brimming with a smile. I froze. This was the first time I had seen Jiang Chen since my rebirth. Jiang Chen raised one eyebrow and leaned in slightly. So, you're my young stepmother. My face flushed. I'm not, Jiang Chen responded lightly, and after a moment, he spoke. It's a good thing you're not, otherwise, it would be a shame for someone so beautiful to be my stepmother. You should be my girlfriend instead. My heart skipped a beat, and I lightly bit my lip. Something's not right. In my previous life, when Jiang Chen and I first started working together, he was aloof and reserved. It was only later that he often teased me. How could it be? Before I could come up with an answer, Song Lan, dressed in her wedding gown, walked down the stairs with a shy and timid expression. Upon seeing the handsome Jiang Chen, her cheeks flushed, and she made a move to take his arm. You must be Jiang Lin, right? Thank you for coming to pick me up in person. I am not. Jiang Chen's tone was cool and detached as he avoided Song Lan's hand. I'm here to pick up the bride on behalf of my father. Song Lan was taken aback. Your father? Jiang Chen nodded. The Jiang Lin you're marrying is my father. He's 52 years old and the wealthiest man in Jiangqing. No, impossible. It was only then that Song Lan realized she had made a mistake. The person she was supposed to marry was clearly a young and accomplished tycoon. How could it possibly be an old man? She clenched the bouquet tightly, shaking her head desperately. I won't marry. I don't want to marry an old man. Dad, please, help me beg for mercy. I don't want to get married. 9, Aunt Ching said sarcastically. It was you who insisted on marrying only the richest Mr. Jiang, and now it's you who regrets it. Our Song family can't afford to offend the Jiang family. Song Lan's eyes brimmed with tears as she looked at her father with hopeful anticipation. Dad, please, I beg you, let Song Ying marry him instead. I just don't want to marry an old man. But which is more important, a daughter or the Jiang family? Father quickly figured out the answer. Father had been smug these days about soon forming a connection with the Song family. How could he allow Song Lan to say she wouldn't marry just because she didn't want to? Slap. Father raised his hand and gave Song Lan a sharp slap, roaring angrily. What do you think the Jiang family is? You think you can just refuse to marry, and have your sister marry in your place? Have you no shame? Song Lan was stunned by the slap, her face streaked with tears, looking utterly disheveled. In the end, Dad had several servants tie Song Lan up and stuff her into the car. Song Lan struggled desperately, but it was useless. Song Lan had been married for 3 months, and it was said that the Jiang family's nanny could hear her miserable cries for help and bitter curses every night. It was all her own choice, but she still blames me for everything. She didn't want to marry an old man who was halfway into the grave, especially since Jiang Lin has a heart condition and cannot engage in vigorous exercise. He exudes an old man's odor all over. He got married just to have a young and beautiful girl by his side to boost his image, but after the wedding, he lost interest and cast her aside. Hearing about Song Lan's difficult life, I felt no emotional stir within me. The heart bypass surgery for my second granduncle was very successful, and the construction of the small mountain village was completed just before the new year. On the first day of the Lunar New Year, the small mountain village hot spring resort officially began operations. Thanks to prior arrangements with the media, visitors streamed in continuously on the opening day, making the place packed to capacity. Everything was moving in a positive direction, except for one person. "Why did you ask me out again?" I frowned, looking at Jiang Chen sitting across from me. Jiang Chen maintained a smile at the corner of his mouth. "I heard this newly opened restaurant is quite good, so I brought you here to try it." I've heard this kind of reasoning from Jiang Chen several times already. Whenever he discovers something new and interesting, he always shares it with me. I teased, "How about I prepare a VIP guest room for you at the villa? That way, you can see me every day." Jiang Chen naturally took my hand, his peach blossom eyes curving into a smile. "Sure, I knew you had me in your heart." My hand felt like it had been shocked by electricity when he touched it, and I quickly pulled it back. "What are you talking about?" "Mr. Jiang, please be mindful of your position. If you spread rumors, I'll have my lawyer send you a warning letter." Jiang Chen just smiled without speaking, quietly gazing at me like that. Jiang Chen had also come with a serious matter this time. He had heard that Jiang Lin was recently considering making a will, so he intended to strike first. Jiang Chen didn't even ask for my opinion before assuming I would get involved to help him. In fact, I did agree to assist him without hesitation. Song Lan endured 3 months of disdain in the Jiang family. Jiang Lin treated her as if she were invisible, and the servants mocked her in various ways. Song Lan made several calls to her father, but instead of sympathizing, he even harshly warned that if she couldn't make Jiang Lin happy, the Song family would have no use for a worthless daughter. "Worthless, you're all worthless." Song Lan angrily hung up the phone. She had to quickly come up with a good idea. Upon hearing about Song Lan's predicament, I deliberately spread the word that there was an imported medicine with miraculous effects for heart disease, which was not yet available on the market and required a hefty sum to obtain. Holding on to the idea of trying a desperate remedy, Song Lan bought it back and respectfully presented it to Jiang Lin. Jiang Lin took the medicine with a mix of doubt and hope, and after a few days, he indeed found that his constantly uncomfortable heart had improved, which even changed his attitude toward Song Lan. 10. Song Lan tasted the sweetness of success and finally felt a hint of being the center of attention. Just as Song Lan was immersed in the highlight of his life, he never expected that after the Lantern Festival, Jiang Lin would suddenly die of a heart attack in bed. Song Lan trembled with fear as the bedroom door was pushed open. Jiang Chen stared coldly at the flustered and guilty Song Lan, raising an eyebrow. "Did you kill my father?" "No, it wasn't me. I didn't kill anyone." Song Lan's head shook like a rattle drum, her mind filled with the urgent need to flee this troublesome place, and she bolted out of the bedroom. She was truly terrified, to the point where she didn't even notice me standing behind Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen asked, still chasing after it. I shook my head. The reason Song Lan had heard about that method was because Jiang Chen and I had deliberately spread the word. If they investigated further, it might end up harming both of us. The outcome is the same anyway. Jiang Lin died before he could make a will, and Jiang Chen, as the son of the first wife, directly inherited all the assets. Those illegitimate children rushed over upon hearing the news of Jiang Lin's death. When they learned that Jiang Lin's estate had no share for them, they made a scene and even threatened to take legal action. "We are all our father's sons. Why is there no share for us in the estate?" A hint of mockery flickered in the depths of Jiang Chen's dark eyes. "Sons, do you have paternity test reports?" Jiang Chen and I had already arranged everything. Jiang Lin was cremated immediately after his death, so those illegitimate children couldn't possibly conduct a paternity test with a pile of ashes. This move of cutting off the firewood under the cauldron was ruthless and decisive, leaving those illegitimate children with expressions of utter despair. Song Lan threw the medicine into the trash can. Even though she had destroyed the evidence, she was still immersed in the panic of being a murderer. She didn't dare to inquire about the news at the Jiang family. Nor did she dare to return to the Song family. When she wanted to stay at a hotel, she found that every hotel required showing an ID card. Song Lan was like a rat scurrying around everywhere. shivering from the cold as she curled up on a park bench during the day, and spending the night in a self-service bank at night. After more than a week of roughing it outdoors, Song Lan finally couldn't take it anymore. Her originally light-colored clothes were now unrecognizable, her hair was a tangled mess like a bird's nest, and she looked like a ragged wild woman who had just emerged from the mountains. Song Lan decided to return to the Song family home to steal some money. She tiptoed up to the third floor, only to run headlong into Song Yang, who was holding a toy knife. Thief! Song Yang brandished the realistic-looking toy knife. Get out of my house, I'm calling the police. The word, call the police, triggered Song Lan, whose mental state was already precarious. Without a second thought, she pushed Song Yang, shouting, I'm not a thief, I didn't break the law, I didn't kill anyone either, I didn't do it, I didn't do any of it. Just as Song Lan fled in panic, I happened to return to the villa last time. Song Yang was lucky enough to only sprain his ankle after falling from upstairs, but this time, fate stripped him of that luck. By the time Song Yang was taken to the hospital, he was already on the brink of death. The doctors determined that a skull fracture had caused massive bleeding. After over an hour of emergency treatment, they managed to save his life, but he was left with cerebral palsy, requiring lifelong care for the rest of his days. Aunt Ching seemed to have aged 10 years overnight. Seeing her own son in such a state was even more painful than killing her. 11. Aunt Ching reported the incident to the police. The surveillance footage at home could prove that it was indeed Song Lan who pushed Song Yang down the stairs. The police quickly filed a case and launched an investigation, issuing a warrant for Song Lan's arrest, but Song Lan seemed to have vanished into thin air. The police searched for a full 3 months without finding any trace of her. 3 months later, news suddenly spread that I was about to marry Jiang Chen, the wealthiest man in the city. Just like in my previous life, Jiang Chen prepared a grand, century-defining wedding for me, announcing the news across major media outlets half a month in advance, making the entire city envious. While cleaning the toilet, Song Lan saw the news of my upcoming wedding during her meal break. A spark of jealousy instantly flared up, and she clenched her fists tightly in resentment. To this day, she still blames all her misfortunes on me. Song Lan decided to end it all with me, so she took a knife and sneaked into the Song family villa late at night, quietly opening the door to my bedroom. In the dark environment, she vaguely saw someone lying on the bed. Without a word, Song Lan raised the sharp knife. The sharp knife plunged into the human flesh with a thud. Song Lan let out a hysterical laugh. Song Ying, go to hell, ha ha ha. In the end, you still have to die by my hand, don't you? All of this is because of you. If it weren't for you, I would be the happiest person in the world. The bed was soon soaked in blood. Sensing that the person under the quilt had stopped moving, Song Lan hurriedly sheathed the knife and fled in panic. The next day, the servant discovered her father's body and screamed as she called the police. I agreed to Jiang Chen's proposal and then publicized it extensively just to make Song Lan come out on her own. Song Lan didn't know that during her absence from home, I suggested that the series of misfortunes in our family might be related to feng shui, so, on the advice of a feng shui master, Dad and I swapped rooms. If we hadn't switched bedrooms, the one who would have died would have been me. The next morning, Song Lan happily bought a breakfast and watched the TV in the mall, believing that the news of my death would be broadcast soon. Yet there was nothing. She widened her eyes, straining them until they ached, only to receive a bombshell. The chairman of the Song group had unfortunately passed away last night. In mourning, the grand wedding between me and Jiang Chen will be postponed for a while. Song Lan's ears buzzed as if 10,000 flies were swarming, and despair crept across her face. Impossible, how could this be? I clearly killed that bitch Song Ying. Out of the corner of her eye, Song Lan saw 2 police officers walking toward her. Terrified, she broke out in a cold sweat and immediately took off running. The police pursued Song Lan for a full 5 years, and it wasn't until 5 years later that she was finally captured. It turned out that while Song Lan was hiding and evading capture, she encountered human traffickers. She was drugged and, upon waking up, found herself in a desolate, uninhabited mountain. After all the twists and turns, Song Lan's fate remained the same as in her previous life, having to face all the men in the village every day. When the police caught her, Song Lan was driven to madness, emaciated and weeping uncontrollably, repeating the same words over and over. I can't accept it, I can't accept it. When I heard the news, Jiang Chen and I were on our honeymoon in Bali. The day before our grand wedding, we laid our cards on the table. It turns out Jiang Chen was also reborn. The regrets from our grand wedding in the previous life have been completely made up to me in this one. Besides that, There was also a whole pile of sweet nothings. Darling, to be honest, I fell in love with you at first sight. You thought I was cold and aloof because I was just pretending. Darling, I really, really like you so much. Darling, I irritably covered my ears, staring at the azure water and wondering whether to throw Jiang Chen, that chatterbox, into the water. Forget it, I sweetly curled the corner of my mouth, deciding to wait another 100 years before finishing him off. After hearing the second story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. A colleague comes to my house for a nap every day. He doesn't wash his sweaty feet and goes straight to bed. I politely declined several times, but she pretended not to understand. One day, I couldn't take it anymore and said, Sister Jiang, why don't you wash your feet before your nap? Her expression immediately turned sour, and from then on, she bad-mouthed me to everyone she met. Wang Qingqing is so shrewd, she won't even let me nap at her place for half an hour, as if she's hiding some great treasure at home. I just thought she was being gossipy, so I endured it. I never expected that a thief would break into my house that very night. As soon as I opened my eyes, I saw a dark figure brutally killing my cat. Muttering angrily, where's the big treasure? How is there only a cat? I desperately held back from making a sound, but was still discovered to be pretending to sleep, and ultimately met an untimely death. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day my roommate shamelessly came to my house for a nap. 1. Wang Qingqing, I'll be coming to your place for a nap later. It was nearly noon, and I hadn't finished the work at hand when my colleague Jiang Jia called. As soon as it struck 12, she called again to urge me, what are you dawdling for? I didn't sleep until 3 last night, and now I'm so tired I could die. Hurry up, I really can't stand people like her who have no sense of boundaries. It's bad enough that she invited herself over, still not a bit self-aware. Those smelly, sweaty feet, never washed, always stepping directly onto the quilt. I tactfully refused her several times, saying, my boyfriend is here, so it's not convenient for you to come over for a nap during this time. I thought I could finally get rid of her, but unexpectedly, she timed it perfectly, thinking my boyfriend should have left by then, and called me again. I pretended not to see it. She then came up to me and said, working overtime at noon doesn't even come with extra pay. You should hurry home and get some rest. I've been busy all morning, my stomach is cramping from hunger, and I still have to rush home to turn on the air conditioner so she can take her afternoon nap. I can't even begin to describe how angry I am. So, when I smelled the stench from her sweaty feet, I finally couldn't hold back and said, Jiang Jia, why don't you wash your feet before taking your afternoon nap? I never expected Jiang Jia's expression to suddenly change, as she pointed at my nose and cursed, Wang Qingqing, don't go looking for trouble. If you don't want me at your house, just say it straight. Don't beat around the bush with those nasty words, always being so sarcastic. It's not like I owe you millions. I was so furious at the time that I told her to get out of my house immediately. You just wait, she said before leaving, dropping a harsh threat. Later at the company, she gossiped about me again. Wang Qingqing is such a sly one, she wouldn't even let me take a half-hour nap at her place, as if she's hiding some big treasure at home. I just thought she was being gossipy and let it slide, but I never expected that she would die in her own rented room that very night, too. The moment she realized she had been reborn, Jiang Jia was shamelessly clinging to me. A sharp pain shot through my arm. I snapped back to reality and immediately shook off her hand, speaking bluntly, I don't like you coming to my house for a nap. Don't come again in the future. Jiang Jia froze, looking as if she had seen a ghost. I ignored her and went to the cafeteria first to deal with my hunger. After finishing my meal, just as I was about to head home, I suddenly received a message from Jiang Jia. I can't sleep at the company at all. Maybe I've gotten used to sleeping at your place. I think I'll go to your house for my nap. Just 3 seconds later, she sent another message. The key has been put back under the mat. I'm going to sleep first. I pursed my lips and immediately called her. The phone rang for over 10 seconds before it was answered. Jiang Jia yelled at me, Wang Qingqing, when will you ever consider other people's feelings? I already told you I didn't get enough rest last night. Couldn't you have waited until I woke up to talk about whatever it is? I was so angry I laughed, coldly questioning her. Did I not consider your feelings? I would have kicked you out the very first day you followed me home. How do you have the nerve to come to my place for a nap every day? Did I ever invite you? Can't you tell you're not welcome here? I've turned you down several times before, but you pretended not to understand and showed no self-awareness. Today, I had no choice but to be blunt with you. I never expected you to trespass into my home, Do you really want to tear things apart? Perhaps it's because I've been too tolerant at the company all along." Jiang Jia completely ignored my words, her tone even more aggressive than mine. "It takes me 20 minutes to go home and back. Your place is so close to the office. What's the big deal if I take a nap there during lunch break? You're just selfish, always acting so stingy, nitpicking over every little thing. You live alone in such a big house, yet you don't even bother to tidy up the spare room and invite your colleagues over to rest. You always put yourself first." Listen to how self-righteous that sounds. My chest felt like it was blocked by a fire about to explode, and I had no intention of showing her any mercy. "If you don't get out of my house right now, I'll call the police." But before I could finish speaking, the call was abruptly disconnected. When I tried calling back, she instantly rejected the call and blocked my number. I clenched my fist tighter. Suddenly, I remembered the key Jiang Jia had just mentioned. It was the spare key I had hidden under the doormat. I used to think that with advanced technology, surveillance everywhere, and people's moral standards being high, no one would ever steal anything, but having lived a second life, I find this thought of mine quite laughable. Not daring to think any further, I immediately ran back home. Yet, just 1 second before lifting the carpet, I suddenly noticed 2 cigarette butts nearby. Pointing toward my front door. 3. The cigarette butt wasn't crushed underfoot. Judging by the crease on the filter, it was likely pinched out by hand, just like I do when I squat down. But almost no one in the building I rent smokes. The elderly man across the hall also quit smoking years ago after being diagnosed with a lung condition. A wave of panic surged within me. Quickly kick away both cigarette butts, repeatedly checking the door frame and corners for any special marks. Time passed bit by bit. As the time to go to work drew closer and closer, I had no choice but to first retrieve the key from under the carpet and carefully turn the door lock. Pushing open the door, the house was empty. Hearing the noise, the cat suddenly darted out, circling around me. My nose tingled with emotion, and my eyes grew hot and stinging. The cat's pupils narrowed, as if startled by me, but soon, it rubbed its furry head against me. Meow. Blue cats are gentle in nature, emotionally stable, and generally not fond of meowing. I have kept it for 3 years and have never heard it scream loudly, but in its previous life, it was brutally choked by someone, letting out a sharp, piercing cry. Only after it fell completely silent did the murderer forcefully throw it to the ground. With a heavy thud, the cat never woke up again, and I, timid and cowardly, could only curl up under the covers, trembling. After being discovered by the killer for pretending to sleep, I lost consciousness without even seeing his face clearly. My heart ached sharply, and tears welled up in my eyes. The cat knew nothing. It just tilted its head, looking at me, and gently licked the tears from my cheeks. I held it tightly in my arms, grateful for the chance to live another life. In this life, I will no longer be a fish on the chopping block, at the mercy of others. To keep both me and my cat alive, I must make foolproof preparations. For, without sleeping all afternoon, I frantically placed online orders for same-day delivery, self-defense tools. When I rushed back to the office to work, I happened to hear Jiang Jia curling her lips and saying to someone, "Don't be fooled by Wang Qingqing's honest appearance. She's actually quite shrewd. I rested at her place for half an hour at noon, and she wanted me to pay. When I didn't, she started making all sorts of sarcastic remarks. Today, she even called and threatened to call the police on me. I have no idea what's gotten into her." After hearing this, several colleagues looked astonished. Someone wanted to ask for more details but noticed me standing nearby and quickly turned away. But Jiang Jia was not afraid at all. Seeing me approach, she said mockingly, "Qingqing, sleeping alone in a big bed with no one to disturb or bother, you must be really comfortable, right?" I smiled. "Yes, without the smell of your stinky feet, I fall asleep much faster." Afraid my colleague wouldn't understand, I sighed and explained, "Jiang Jia has sweaty hands and feet. As soon as she takes off her shoes, the smell is enough to knock you out." I felt too embarrassed to tell her not to come to my house, so I kept putting up with it. Today, I couldn't take it anymore and finally mustered the courage to refuse her. Jiang Jia was so angry that her whole face flushed red. "Wang Qingqing, are you crazy? I wash my feet every day. How could I possibly have smelly feet? If you don't want me to come to your house for a nap, just say it straight. Don't beat around the bush with all that nonsense." Several colleagues were desperately holding back their laughter, their shoulders shaking uncontrollably. I also found it amusing and walked up to her to warn her, "I know you not only have smelly feet, but your mouth is foul and gossipy too. If anything happens to me one day, you'll definitely be held responsible." When I said the second half of that sentence, I deliberately stared at Jiang Jia. A flicker of panic crossed her face. In my previous life, although I didn't see the killer's face clearly, I distinctly remembered his coarse, eerie whisper, "Where's the big baby? Why is there only a cat?" The phrase, "big baby," had always been Jiang Jia's catchphrase. Could there really be such a coincidence in the world? I don't believe it. But before I could say anything more, the supervisor came over. "What are you all gathered here for? Get back to work, now." 5. When things got busy, time flew by in the blink of an eye. 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I finished my work at hand and looked up to find Jiang Jia had already left. Unable to probe her further, I had to go to the courier station to pick up my package. While climbing the stairs back home, I noticed many cigarette butts had been thrown in the stairwell, but in comparison, the 2 cigarette butts at my doorstep are the shortest. Why would a normal person smoke 2 cigarettes at someone else's doorstep? I tried to calm myself down and searched online for what to do if you suspect you're being cased. AI was the first to provide a few answers. I immediately posted a note at the door that read, "If you litter cigarette butts again, I will report you directly." Then, I had someone install the surveillance camera I bought online on the wall. After returning home, I also placed a doorstop alarm behind the door. The remaining self-defense tools were kept within easy reach. Time passed little by little, and night fell. I held the cat in my arms, lying on my side on the bed, not daring to close my eyes for a moment. By 3:24 a.m., my eyelids were so heavy that I could barely keep them open. Suddenly, a rustling sound came from the stairwell outside the door. My heart tightened, and my throat felt so constricted it seemed to swell. I forced myself to endure the fear and went to check the surveillance footage. The screen shows loading, and just as the progress is about to reach 100%, the camera is suddenly blocked by something, leaving only a fragmented shadow visible. I dare not adjust the camera to alert the person outside the door, nor do I dare make a sound to call for help. My heart feels like it's about to leap out of my throat. My hands can't stop trembling. I drag the timeline of the surveillance footage to the left. A medium-height figure dressed in black appears in the frame. He is wearing a black beanie and a medical mask over his face. After kicking aside the doormat at my doorstep, he glances down, seemingly aware that there is a key hidden underneath. But I've already hidden the key. The man probably won't pick the lock. After hesitating for a few seconds, he then threw the thing he was holding at the camera. 6. The man in black ran away. After he left, I was even more afraid to close my eyes, my gaze fixed tightly on the window, fearing he might turn back and strike again. It wasn't until a faint light began to appear at the window that I mustered the strength to lift my numb body and stumbled to the police station to report the incident. After receiving a series of reassuring responses, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. I went home, cleaned the excrement off the camera, and then headed back to work. Just as I reached the office door, I heard Jiang Jia sitting at my workstation chatting and laughing with someone. "Wang Qingqing has run into some trouble. She definitely won't be able to come today." My colleague, who works closely with me, was puzzled. "How do you know? Didn't you two just have an argument?" Jiang Jia sighed. "Wang Qingqing is particularly obsessed with money. She never takes sick leave even when she has a fever or a cold, and she's never late even during typhoons or heavy rain. Something major must have happened at home." Her pretentious act made me feel nauseous. I signaled to my colleague who noticed me to stay quiet. Only when I walked behind Jiang Jia did I suddenly speak up. "I'm sorry to disappoint you, but nothing has happened in my family." Jiang Jia jumped up from her seat in fright, her expression full of fear. I stared into her eyes, moving closer. "Are you curious about what I was doing on my leave?" Jiang Jia couldn't help but step back. When she realized she had shown fear, her expression instantly turned extremely unpleasant. I smiled and continued speaking. "Someone tampered with the surveillance camera outside my house last night. I went to report it this morning." The colleague beside me gasped, and everyone started asking me questions all at once. Jiang Jia suddenly laughed. "What kind of treasure do you have at home that a thief would be interested in? I've been coming to your place for naps for so long, and I've noticed you just love buying all sorts of random knockoffs. The only things you can actually show off are those bottles and jars and your computer." "Yeah, I'm really curious too." I nodded with a smile. "Look at the things I usually wear. They're all very ordinary. My phone is just a regular 2,000 yuan Android device. I never show off what I have outside, and my social media is full of scenic photos. What could I possibly have that a thief would want?" Jiang Jia let out a cold laugh from her throat. "Who knows what kind of big treasure you're hiding at home? After all, you don't have to hand over your salary, you don't have kids to support, your mind is only focused on having fun, and all your money is spent on yourself. The colleagues looked at each other, the atmosphere instantly became awkward. I stared coldly at Jiang Jia, my knuckles turning white from clenching. In my previous life, I always believed in enduring everything, thinking that taking a step back would lead to a broader horizon, but now, I realize how foolish I was. Why endure at all? Taking a step back only invites others to take a mile. Just because I can endure it, I get bullied, I sneered. Don't have such a strong sense of possessiveness over other people's money. How I spend it and where I spend it have nothing to do with you. Jiang Jia trembled with anger, pointing at my nose and saying, "You just wait." I slapped her hand away. 7. After the argument, Jiang Jia never came to my house again. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye, and life was as calm as if nothing had happened. But on the third day after work, I smelled smoke in the house, and my mind instantly went on high alert. I picked up the cat and quickly ran to a safe place to check the home surveillance footage, but after checking several times, I found no suspicious figures at the door. I had no choice but to call the police again. When the police arrived to investigate, they discovered a cigarette butt lying at the entrance to my bedroom. I could almost picture the scene of the murderer smoking that cigarette. He stood at the door of the room, or moved slowly around the house. His gaze swept over everything inch by inch, even teasing my cat with a mischievous scare. The fear of death quietly lingered in my heart. I felt a chill run down my spine, and my neck was tightly gripped by those hands again. "What's wrong with you?" someone asked. I looked up in a daze, gasping for breath, pointing at the cigarette butt on the ground. I shouted, "This must have been left by the thief." The cigarette butt was then placed in a transparent bag and taken away. Seeing them leave, I didn't dare linger in the house any longer. But if I don't stay at home, where else can I go? 8. At 10 o'clock in the evening, there was still no news. The only good news is, someone has come to protect me. But lying in bed, I couldn't fall asleep at all. Even the slightest noise would startle me awake. After struggling through until dawn, I felt as if I had been pulled out of water. After splashing my face with cold water, I rushed to the company and confronted Jiang Jia. "Was that person you who brought them here?" Jiang Jia looked bewildered. "What person? What are you talking about?" I gritted my teeth and pleaded weakly, "I'm sorry, I know I was wrong. Can you please tell him not to come to my house anymore? I'm begging you." Jiang Jia curled her lips into a smile and laughed heartily. "I really don't know what you're talking about. It's work hours now. Don't hold me up." I never expected Jiang Jia to be someone who wouldn't yield to either soft or hard tactics. I returned to my workstation and turned off the phone that was recording. After that, my mind remained in a state of high tension, on the verge of breaking down. I finally received 2 pieces of news. Good news, the thief has been found. Bad news, the thief is a repeat offender and has a mental illness. 9. I rushed to the police station and heard the person in charge tell me, "We extracted fingerprints from the cigarette butt and, after matching them in the system, identified a suspect. He Daxiong has a mental illness." I'm not insulting him, it's the truth. We previously sent him to a mental hospital, but the hospital found him too difficult to manage. They only admitted his sister and refused to take him in. As he spoke, the person in charge even opened his phone to show me photos. "Look, this is a photo of me sending him to the mental hospital. They found him troublesome and didn't want to take him in." My mind went blank for a moment, unsure how to handle this situation, and I awkwardly asked, "How long can someone like him be locked up?" The person in charge pondered for a moment and earnestly analyzed the situation for me. Since there was no monetary amount involved, the case couldn't be filed, and since the person is mentally ill, we can't detain them. Seeing my grim expression, the person in charge quietly changed the subject. "There are 4 people in his family, apart from his father, who is normal. The other 3 are all mentally ill. They defecate and urinate everywhere, and even steal underwear and shorts that others have hung outside to wear." These words felt like a bucket of ice water poured over my head from above. I closed my eyes in despair. At that moment, Daxiong's father rushed over. He kept repeating to me, I'm sorry, it's all my son's fault." The man appeared to be in his 60s or 70s. With a sallow face and a pained expression, half of his body was wrapped in that oversized, hole-riddled school uniform, and his eyes looked exceptionally weary. He bent down, looking more like a victim than I did, and besides accepting it, I seemed to be able to do nothing, until a phone ring sounded. I walked outside to answer it. Jiang Jia said, "I thought about it. Since you begged me like that, I'll go to your place for a nap at noon today." I gripped my phone tightly, a cold sneer in my heart. She then emphasized, "I get off work at 12, and it takes about 20 minutes to eat, so remember to open the door for me at 12:20. "Why do you need me to open the door? Don't you know there's a key under the rug?" I pursed my lips and persisted, "What exactly is your relationship with that lunatic?" Before she could finish her sentence, Jiang Jia had already hung up the phone. I had to run home to find her, but I never expected that this time she didn't even take off her shoes when she entered. Walking straight into the bedroom, "You said my shoes would stink you to death if I took them off, so I'll just sleep with them on from now on." As she spoke, she was about to put on her shoes and get into bed. Fury surged within me, and I rushed over, grabbing her hair and yanking it back with all my might. She was dragged along by me like a trash bag, screaming loudly, "Wang Qingqing, you damn bitch, how dare you pull my hair? My parents never laid a hand on me. My husband never touched a single hair on my head. How dare you lay a finger on me? Why, I also want to ask why should I? Just because I have an honest personality, be taken advantage of by you who are so familiar with me? Why should I, after enduring again and again, still have my self-respect pulled out and trampled on the ground by you?" Hatred spread wildly in the depths of the heart. The anger in Jiang Jia's eyes gradually gave way to terror, her sharp voice almost cracking. After all, the place I rented was an old house with almost no soundproofing, and soon someone was banging on the door. It's broad daylight. "What's all the noise about? Can't you keep it down?" I finally calmed down, my face darkening as I looked at the person on the ground. "Get out." Watching Jiang Jia flee in a panic, I felt an immense sense of satisfaction, but I celebrated too soon. That night, at 3:34 a.m., the alarm in the bedroom suddenly jolted me awake. The supermoon, mentioned in the news, cast an exceptionally clear shadow outside the window. The old-fashioned security bars became the perfect foothold, with the dark figure outside clinging to them. 10. I held my breath, turned on the switch of the wire wrapped around the iron window. Zzz, zzz. Moments later, the dark figure fell from outside the window, making a thud sound. At the same time, I dialed 110. He Daxiong was taken to the hospital for emergency treatment. His father rushed over immediately, grabbing the doctor by the collar and shouting angrily, "Where is my son? If he's gone, I'll never let you off, even if I die." That face, which always looked troubled, twisted in agony. Fortunately, there were police officers nearby who promptly rescued the doctor. He Daxiong's father also learned about his son's current condition from the police, pounding his chest with both fists. "Daxiong is my only son. I was counting on him to take care of me in my old age and see me off when I die. Who could be so vicious?" A subtle glance was cast in my direction. "Your son was injured while doing something bad. Who else are you trying to blame, mister?" His face, etched with deep wrinkles, was full of stubbornness. "My son is just playful. He never intended to harm anyone, but this person installed an electric fence on the window, clearly intending to cause harm. You should arrest her immediately." Just as his father was about to start making a scene, a nurse came out of the ward and said, "Is he Daxiong's family here? He Daxiong has woken up and keeps saying he's hungry." His father quickly scrambled up from the floor, putting on a flattering smile. All right, as long as my son is fine, could you please give him something to eat first? I'll go buy him some big meat buns right away." He turned and ran out, bumping into several people along the way. After his figure disappeared down the corridor, I turned into the ward. 11. As I walked in, He Daxiong's gaze fell upon me. The way he looked at me was unfamiliar, clear, as if he didn't know me at all. It wasn't until I reached his bedside that he asked curiously, "Who are you?" Instead of answering, I asked him, "Why did you go to that person's house last night?" He Daxiong was initially a bit impatient, but upon hearing this, his eyes suddenly lit up with excitement, and his face flushed red. "Of course, it's to fight the boss. I never expected this dungeon to be so difficult. The boss actually respawned in someone else's house. I failed both attempts to clear it. Once I take some medicine to heal my injuries this time, I'm definitely going to get a set of high-level gear and weapons and try again." I was taken aback. Suddenly, I felt the absurdity of this world. Even my death in my previous life and my vigilance in this one seemed laughable. "But I have another guess in my heart that urgently needs verification. Who told you about this game?" He Daxiong. He Daxiong's expression suddenly turned fierce, as if with one more word from me, he would pounce and attack. Seeing him like this, I could only put on my mask and leave for the time being. I didn't stop to make the call until I had walked all the way outside the hospital. He Daxiong told me everything. Jiang Jia was taken aback on the other end of the line. "What?" Before I could explain, she burst into laughter. "Wang Qingqing, you actually believe what a mentally ill person says? It seems you know He Daxiong." I seized on the wording and questioned, "Otherwise, how would you know he has a mental illness?" Jiang Jia stopped smiling and said with feigned ease, "Yes, I know him. So what? Everyone in my neighborhood knows him. After getting this answer, I returned to the ward once more. He waited until his father had walked away before going in, continuing the previous topic. I'm a player just like you. Hidashyong showed a wary expression, his hands slowly reaching toward the cup on the bedside table. I snatched the cup away before he could, quickly explaining, I'm a newbie, I don't even know how to enter the instance. If you can tell me who assigns the tasks, we can team up to tackle the levels together in the future. One more person means one more strength. The indifference on Hidashyong's face slowly faded, and his gaze toward me turned puzzled. So this dungeon can be teamed up for, no wonder I couldn't solo it. After muttering to himself for a while, he earnestly told me, this is a hidden dungeon. I picked it up at the entrance of the internet cafe. The NPC is female, I often see her in Shaowang village. You can try your luck there. If you successfully pick up the dungeon, be sure to come find me to team up. I smiled and nodded, but my gaze gradually turned cold. If I remember correctly, Jiang Jie's husband's surname is Wang, and she currently lives in Shaowang village. Since she insists on pretending not to understand, I hope she can keep up the act. 12. I opened the map and searched for internet cafes located in Shaowang village. There are 2 in total. I first went to the one with the simplest decoration. The receptionist was a young man. Upon learning that I wanted to check the surveillance footage at the entrance, he quickly called the boss to ask for instructions. The boss found it troublesome and flatly refused me. If it were in my previous life, I would have already backed down in the face of difficulty. But now, I told him firmly and resolutely, if you don't show it to me now, then it will be the police coming to take a look later. Upon hearing this, the boss simply agreed. The young man immediately cooperated and pulled up the surveillance footage. In the surveillance records from the past 7 days, Hidashyong came here to use the internet almost every late night. Going further back, Jiang Jie's figure appeared in the surveillance footage at the entrance. She chatted with Hidashyong for a while at the edge of the surveillance frame. That day was exactly the day I refused Jiang Jie's request to come to my home for a midday rest. I asked the guy to send me this surveillance footage, and I'll forward it to Jiang Jie. The video had just been sent successfully when the phone rang. This time, Jiang Jie finally couldn't stay calm anymore. Wang Qingqing, what do you mean by this? Do you believe I'll sue you for violating my privacy? I laughed. If you know the law so well, why are you inciting a mentally ill person to commit a crime? I didn't. Don't go looking for trouble, Jiang Jie loudly denied. What can a blurry video prove? If you have nothing better to do, hurry up and come to work. Otherwise, I'll tell the boss that you took leave just to do such shady things and have him fire you. Just try reporting it. Too lazy to continue arguing with her, I just took a taxi to the hospital. After meeting Hidashyong, I opened a selfie from Jiang Jie's social media for him to identify. Is the NPC her? The photo had beauty filters applied. Hidashyong took one look and shook his head, had no choice but to dig up a group photo from the work chat. Hidashyong immediately nodded, pointing at Jiang Jie's face and shouting, it's her, it's her. She said the dungeon reward was a glowing computer, and lots of snacks. Lots and lots of money. These are all mine. You're not allowed to touch them. Hidashyong's face suddenly hardened, his gaze turning fierce as he spoke. I wasn't afraid, just felt a sense of irony. Just because I asked Jiang Jie to wash her feet before the lunch break, she went around slandering me. Just because I spend the money I earn on myself, she's unhappy. I can only keep my unhappiness to myself. When she's unhappy, she finds someone to harm me. I laughed in anger, took 2 steps back to create some distance, and then said to Hidashyong, this person is not an NPC at all. You've been deceived by her. She's treating you like a fool, making you make mistakes and get caught, causing your father to lose face. Those rewards she mentioned were all bought with other people's money. Didn't your father teach you that you shouldn't take things that belong to others? Hidashyong stared blankly. He seemed to be thinking, yet also seemed unable to understand my words. I told him, I have a way to prove that she is a fraud. 13. As I walked out of the hospital room, I suddenly met the gaze of his father. He was holding a lunchbox in both hands, and I couldn't tell how long he had been sitting outside. He gave me a nod, his expression blank. Watching him go in to feed Hidashyong, I snapped back to reality with a sense of unease. But once the arrow is shot, there's no turning back. You never know until you try. 14. That afternoon, his father arranged for Hidashyong to be discharged from the hospital. Hidashyong intercepted Jiang Jie on her way home. Jiang Jie quickly pulled him into a corner, completely unaware of the complex looks directed at her. What's wrong with you? Can't even get through such a simple dungeon? Hidashyong stared at her and said, you lied to me. Jiang Jia whispered sharply. Who said that? Why would I lie to you? As long as you clear the dungeon, you can take everything inside directly. You're just not capable, and now you're blaming me for lying. Those are someone else's things, you can't take them. He Daxiong repeated what I had said. Jiang Jia chuckled. You're such a fool. If you can't take it, you can have someone else give it to you. He Daxiong immediately got excited. Really? Then how should I tell her? Jiang Jia smiled and suddenly lowered her voice. Defeat the dungeon boss, and she'll naturally give it to you. He Daxiong responded with a series of ahas, and waited until Jiang Jia had walked far away before taking the voice recorder out of his pocket. After listening to the recording, I dialed the police hotline. Hello, I am Wang Qingqing, the one who reported a burglary at my home on December 14th. I want to formally report my colleague Jiang Jia for maliciously inciting the mentally ill patient He Daxiong to commit a crime. She deceived He Daxiong into treating the home invasion as a game mission, treating the items in my home as mission rewards, and demanded that He Daxiong use violent means against me. Jiang Jia has incited He Daxiong to target me on multiple occasions, posing threats to my personal safety on several instances. Please, you must. 15. That day, Jiang Jia was taken away during work hours, leaving everyone staring in stunned silence. The leader came running over in a panic to negotiate, but was sharply cut off. When Jiang Jia stood before me, her face instantly turned pale. She lunged at me frantically, hurling insults at me. You bitch, you bastard, your mother, why don't you just die? I didn't do anything, why are you arresting me? I still have to go to work, I want to go home. But no matter how she tried to argue or struggle, it was no match for the overwhelming evidence presented one by one. In the end, Jiang Jia seemed to have grown tired, just kept repeating over and over, I really didn't, I didn't do anything. What's fake can't become real, what's real can't become fake. The recording I had He Daxiong make is enough to prove that she is guilty of incitement, and she is the principal offender. Jiang Jia shook her head desperately upon hearing this. She pleaded with me in a trembling voice. Qingqing, you clearly have nothing wrong, why won't you let me go? I've learned my lesson, and I'll never dare to speak carelessly again. I was just jealous that you have no burdens in life, ordering takeout whenever you want, turning on the air conditioning when it's hot, living without having to please others or scrimp and save. I never meant to harm you, I was just momentarily confused and couldn't control my words. My son is only 2 years old. If I'm not by his side, my mother-in-law will definitely force my husband to divorce me, and then my son will have no mother. Please, I beg you. She broke down in tears, continuously repenting, even kneeling down to kowtow to me. I took a deep breath with an expressionless face, a faint bitterness welling up in my heart. My life is not as good as she described. Just 1 year out of college, I had just survived the grueling and exhausting internship period, just gotten over the pain of a lover's betrayal, and just paid off an overdue loan. In her eyes, I was living a carefree and happy life on my own, but in places she couldn't see, I wasn't all that happy. I was the emotional dumping ground for my parents, a piece of property in the family, a soft persimmon. I spend money on a cup of coffee, a piece of clothing, and those flashy little things because I want to live with mental well-being. Yet her momentary lapse of judgment became my utter downfall. 16. During my prolonged silence, Jiang Jia finally realized I would not forgive her. Like someone on the verge of drowning, she stared at me with a twisted expression, wildly flailing her arms and grasping at the air. Wang Qingqing, you really deserve to die. Why don't you just die? The sound of the forceful scream was piercing to the eardrums. Jiang Jia was taken away to calm down. During the subsequent interrogation, she still tried to make excuses, but the evidence I provided was sufficient, and she finally had to confess her motives and the process of her crime. Just as she pleaded with me for mercy, she said she simply felt that I was living too comfortably alone, and it made her feel unbalanced, so she deliberately caused trouble for me. As for instigating He Daxiong to commit the crime, it was purely because I refused to let her come to my house for a nap, and she wanted to take revenge. Finally, not only does she have to compensate me for my emotional distress, but she also has to spend a few years working on a sewing machine. When the verdict was announced, Jiang Jia fainted from anger, but fainting was of no use. Everyone must pay for their mistakes. Not long after Jiang Jia was imprisoned, He Daxiong was also subjected to compulsory medical treatment due to his high level of danger, and I used that compensation for emotional distress to rent a new apartment. Then, with the cat, I moved into the new house and restarted our new life. After hearing the stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, Don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.